I collapsed at work and was swiftly taken to the hospital in an ambulance. The tests revealed a serious illness, requiring emergency surgery immediately. Feeling anxious, I called my husband. I'm about to undergo surgery. I think I'll be hospitalized for about a week to monitor my progress, I told him, expecting reassurance and support. A week, huh? Well, you'll be safe in the hospital. This is a good opportunity for you to take a break, he responded, his tone tinged with something that made me uneasy. Suspicion gnawed at me. After the surgery, during my recovery in the hospital, I decided to check his credit card statements. What I discovered shocked me. He had taken advantage of my hospitalization to travel abroad with his mistress. I was furious. Determined to confront him, I focused on my recovery with remarkable speed. I couldn't wait to see the look on his face when he returned from his trip. My name is Nancy, and Tom and I have been married for a decade. Lately, our relationship had grown indifferent, as if we were merely coexisting. With no children, we both worked hard, and money was never a concern. I had believed we would peacefully retire together. However, Tom had been acting strangely for a while now. He suddenly cared about his appearance and started dressing in expensive clothes and visiting trendy salons. Where have you been getting your hair done lately? I asked one day, noticing the change. It's none of your business, he snapped back defensively. His late nights at work or on supposed business trips had become more frequent. I hadn't paid much attention until I noticed the scent of perfume on him when he returned home late. This suit smells like perfume, I remarked one evening, catching him off guard. Oh, there was a woman next to me on the subway, he stammered, his excuse unconvincing. His behavior painted a clear picture of infidelity, and I was ready to confront him as soon as I was able. When I checked our bank account, I noticed our savings had been rapidly dwindling over the past few years. It was clear to me he was likely spending it on his mistress. Questions flooded my mind. Who was she? How could I uncover the truth? And if he was indeed cheating, what should I do? As I grappled with these thoughts alone, my appetite waned, and I sank into a deepening depression. Then one day at work, it all became too much. Nancy, are you all right? My colleague's voice seemed distant as I began to lose consciousness. The next time I opened my eyes, I found myself in a hospital bed. The doctor explained that stress, likely exacerbated by Tom, had caused my collapse. Further tests were recommended, and I reluctantly agreed to stay overnight. Unprepared for an extended hospital stay, I called Tom immediately. Hello, Tom. I collapsed at work and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. An ambulance? Are you in the hospital now? Yes, they want me to stay overnight for tests. It's probably just stress, I replied, avoiding the real reason. Tom sounded relieved. What? You scared me there. So you're not coming home tonight? No, the test results will come out tomorrow. All right, I got it. The hospital will take care of everything you need, right? I don't need to come, do I? Hurt by his lack of concern, I insisted, I want you here to hear the results with me tomorrow. Do you really need me there? I won't understand what they say, Tom hesitated. I don't want to hear the results alone, I exclaimed firmly. Reluctantly, Tom agreed to accompany me to the hospital the next day. When we heard the test results together, it was like a blow to the gut. The tests show signs of a stroke. We need to perform surgery immediately, the doctor informed us gravely. When I glanced at Tom beside me, he appeared just as shocked by the news. After a moment's contemplation, he turned to the doctor with a question. So, that means she can't come home today, right? That's correct. We'd like her to stay in the hospital today, and we'll schedule the surgery for either tomorrow or the day after, the doctor replied calmly. As for discharge, it will depend on her recovery post-surgery, but likely around a week. A week, I see. Okay, Tom nodded, absorbing the information. Leaving the consultation room with a heavy atmosphere hanging between us, Tom muttered, I'll make a quick phone call, and walked off. I overheard him speaking to someone in hushed tones. She won't be around for a week. This might be our chance, he said before returning to me. As he hastily prepared to leave, I tried to stop him. Wait, hold on. Aren't we going to discuss? We've heard everything from the doctor. We just have to trust the hospital now. It seems like a good place, so don't worry. You should rest. Good luck with the surgery, he interrupted with forced cheerfulness, then swiftly departed. I called after him about the surgery time, but he didn't respond. From then on, Tom never showed up at the hospital. Despite a successful surgery, days went by without a word from him. Calls to our house phone went unanswered, and his cell phone remained out of reach. The memory of that phone call now filled me with a sinking feeling. I logged into Tom's online credit card statement, and what I found was staggering. There were records of 2 airplane tickets to Hawaii, among other expenses, all while I anxiously remained alone in the hospital. Tom was evidently enjoying a lavish trip abroad with his mistress, but that wasn't all. The statement revealed tens of thousands spent on designer brands and dining at upscale restaurants, a level of expenditure I had never imagined. Digging deeper, I traced their accommodations and found her social media profile. It was filled with photos of her and Tom on romantic dates. She seemed certain they wouldn't be discovered. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, my anger towards Tom boiled over. Forgiveness was out of the question. I was determined to retaliate. As I lay in my hospital bed post-surgery, thoughts of revenge consumed me. Eventually, a plan formed, and with it, a newfound surge of energy unlike anything I had felt before. Before the surgery, anxiety had nearly crushed me. Now, my anger had transformed into a driving force. My sole focus was on recovering quickly to execute my revenge. Even the doctor who monitored my progress post-surgery was astonished. This recovery is remarkable. It's rare to see someone bounce back so swiftly, they remarked, with a faint smile. I have something urgent to attend to, so I'd like to be discharged as soon as possible, I informed the hospital staff, determined to accelerate my recovery. Miraculously, my progress exceeded expectations, and I was discharged earlier than planned. I chose not to inform my husband of the change in discharge date. There was no point. His phone would likely go unanswered anyway. Besides, I had no time to waste. I needed to prepare meticulously for my revenge. The first time Tom contacted me on my cell phone was on the original day I was supposed to leave the hospital. "Nancy, I just went to the hospital, and they said you've already been discharged." Yes, my recovery was faster than expected, so they let me go early. You could have let me know. It seems like my phone was off. My bad. Okay, I'll head home now. An hour later, Tom called again, clearly agitated. "Hey Nancy, what the hell is going on?" "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb. Our house is gone." "Oh, you've noticed. I don't need it anymore, so I've cleared the land and put it up for sale. It's in a great location, so it should sell quickly." "What the hell are you talking about? You can't just sell our house. It's marital property." I didn't expect to hear marital property from you. What about the money in our joint bank account? That's marital property too. I've known for a while now that you've been spending it recklessly." "Well, there are various circumstances related to my work." "Related to work, huh? So going on an overseas trip with your mistress is also part of your job?" "How? How did you find out about that?" "You've been careless, haven't you? I can check the credit card statements too. I know about the plane tickets, the accommodations, the restaurants, and all the luxury items for women." Tom was left speechless, realizing I was fully aware of his actions. "I know exactly how much you've spent on your mistress," I said loudly. Tom fell silent. "You're the one who misused our marital property, so I'll be using the money from the house sale to cover what you've given to your mistress and as compensation." "Compensation? But what about our living situation after selling the house?" Tom stammered. "Don't tell me you expect us to keep living together. There's no way. I'm not staying married to a man who takes romantic trips while his wife is in the hospital." "Divorce? Wait, it was just a fling. I never wanted to divorce you." "If it was just a fling, why spend over $10,000? I want nothing to do with such foolishness. You chose a trip with your mistress over being by your wife's side during emergency surgery. To me, that says more than just a fling." "I can't live like this anymore," I continued, my voice firm. "You're not my precious husband anymore. I don't believe a word you say. I don't want to see your face again. I'll be moving into a new home and living freely. You can do whatever you want, even be with your mistress." "Are you serious?" Tom exclaimed. "You'll regret this," he added desperately. "What I regret is the 10 years I wasted with you," I retorted. "You've forgotten all I've done for you in those 10 years. Don't joke about providing for me," I continued with finality. "The money you wasted included our savings." Tom remained silent, realizing there was nothing more to say. "You spent all the money I earned from working, didn't you? Don't act all righteous now. Don't you have any sentimentality? Is this how you treat a husband you've been with for years?" Tom retorted. "That's rich coming from you. I'm just throwing your own words back at you. I shot back. As a kindness, I've put your stuff at the dump. If you don't hurry, the garbage collectors will take it. That's a lie, right? Damn it, don't screw with me. I'm done with you. Tom snapped and hung up abruptly. He was probably rushing to the dump at that very moment. When I disposed of the larger items, I placed the divorce papers on top, hoping he would notice them soon. After everything I had said, surely he would agree to our divorce. I was preparing to start anew, hoping never to hear from him again. But within a month, Tom called me again. What now? I have nothing more to discuss with you, I said, attempting to hang up. However, Tom's voice came through, shouting urgently. Wait, don't hang up. We haven't filed for divorce yet. I'm still your husband. Please listen to me. His unexpected plea left me with no choice but to hear him out. What do you mean we haven't filed for divorce yet? I asked, perplexed. After our conversation, I decided to live with her a bit longer. I wanted to observe before rushing into a divorce and remarriage. It felt like the right decision. Besides, she spends money like water and even talks about marriage. I listened silently, unsure how to respond to this sudden change in Tom's stance. I want to be a homemaker, but even with a ton of savings, it won't be enough if I marry her. I knew that even before you two started living together. I'm surprised you didn't notice her spending habits after showering her with gifts, I replied, incredulous. Tom, sounding oddly impressed, said, I see, Nancy. You're solid. From what you just said, I'm certain you're the only one who can be my wife. Excuse me, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nancy, let's start over. You've been sick. It must be scary to be alone, right? Was this guy an idiot? He wouldn't understand unless I spelled it out for him. I took a deep breath and raised my voice. Scary? How dare you say that? The most scared I've ever been was when I was alone in the hospital on the day of my surgery. Even when I was trembling with fear before the surgery, even when I was enduring the pain afterward, you weren't there for me. I'm really sorry about that. I wasn't thinking straight. It's not just that time, is it? After all this cheating on me. How can you say that? A lot has happened, but I can't do without you. You feel the same way, don't you? That's why you've been with me for 10 years, isn't it? Stop talking nonsense. I'm certain that I can't continue with you after what happened, I said firmly. I can't even imagine spending my life with someone I can't trust. So you don't want to give it another try? No, not at all. What about my feelings? My affection for you disappeared a long time ago. I still had feelings for you as a family member and thought we could spend the rest of our lives appreciating each other. But you trampled on those feelings. Tom fell silent. I left him with these final words. But I do have one thing to thank you for. Finding out you were cheating made me so angry that I felt like I couldn't afford to be sick. I decided to level the house and sell it before you returned from your affair. What the hell is that? Thanks to you, I recovered surprisingly fast. Even the hospital doctors were shocked. It seems my anger towards you became my motivation to keep going. So, thanks for that. Nancy, think this is over? No. Go to hell with your mistress. Goodbye. Without waiting for his reply, I hung up the phone and immediately contacted my lawyer. I couldn't stand postponing the divorce any longer. I had saved all the evidence of his infidelity, ready to submit to my lawyer. I was confident the divorce proceedings and the demand for compensation for emotional distress would go smoothly. By leaving everything to my lawyer, I wouldn't need to contact Tom anymore. To ensure he couldn't call me, I even changed my phone number. I doubted he would dare come to my workplace, but I had informed my colleagues about the situation just in case. Since Tom's bad reputation was already well known in the office, I believed they would alert me immediately if they saw him and help avoid any direct encounters. Everything proceeded exactly as I had planned. Tom, after hearing from the lawyer, obediently agreed to the divorce and accepted the demand for emotional distress compensation. As for his mistress, she apparently resigned herself to paying the compensation since she couldn't deny the affair. It seemed she was ready to remarry Tom once our divorce was finalized, insisting on paying her part of the compensation from Tom's savings, treating it as if it belonged to both of them. At this rate, his savings would be drained in no time. He and his mistress seemed set to continue their irresponsible relationship, and I could see that Tom was headed for a tough time. Yet, I had no sympathy for him. He brought this on himself by cheating with a money-grabbing woman. On the other hand, I managed to rent an apartment of the same size as before using the money from selling our house and the compensation from the divorce. The fruitless 10 years I spent with Tom wouldn't come back, but now I could live my life without being controlled by him. If I ever remarried, it would be with someone who values trust. I made up my mind to follow that principle.
I never expected revenge to arrive gift-wrapped in a merger and acquisition report, but there it was on my desk at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. My company had just acquired Hoffman Industries, the very firm where my ex-husband Anton and my dear cousin Trinity had been working for the past 3 years. Life has a twisted sense of humor sometimes. My name is Marissa, and 5 years ago, these two people destroyed everything I had built. Now, by some cosmic joke, they were about to become my employees. Did you see the personnel list? Juliet, my assistant, poked her head into my office, her expression a mix of concern and barely contained excitement. She'd been there through it all, watching me rebuild from nothing. I did. I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking as I set down my coffee mug. Quite the surprise, isn't it? Surprise? It's karma wrapped in a business deal. They're going to flip when they find out you're their new boss. The memory of that family reunion 5 years ago crashed over me like a wave. I could still see Trinity's face, tear-streaked and guilty, as she confessed everything. How she and Anton had been seeing each other for months. How they'd planned it all. The gradual draining of our joint accounts, the fabricated business losses, the perfectly timed divorce filing that left me with nothing but debt and broken trust. Ms. Clayton, Edgar Hoffman's gravelly voice interrupted my thoughts as he appeared in my doorway. Do you have a moment to discuss the transition? I gestured for him to enter, noting how his expensive suit couldn't quite hide his discomfort. He'd sold his company to me for a reason, and I had a feeling I was about to find out why. I assume you've noticed some familiar names in the employee roster, he said, settling into the chair across from me. Hard to miss your own ex-husband and cousin, I replied dryly. Edgar shifted uncomfortably. I should mention that Anton has been problematic lately. His department's numbers don't add up, and there are discrepancies I can't explain. It's part of why I decided to sell. My phone buzzed with a text from Prudence, my mentor. Heard the news. This is your chance. Don't waste it. What exactly are you suggesting, Edgar? I leaned forward, studying his face. I'm suggesting that karma might need a little push. He pulled out a folder and placed it on my desk. This contains everything I've gathered on Anton's activities over the past year. Use it however you see fit. As he left, Juliet returned with more coffee and a concerned look. Trinity's online too, says it's urgent. My heart jumped to my throat. Put her through. Marissa? Trinity's voice was small, afraid. I just heard about the acquisition. We need to talk. There are things you don't know about Anton, about what really happened. 5 years too late for explanations, don't you think? Please, she whispered. It's not what you think. I made terrible mistakes, but there's more to the story. Anton, he's not done hurting people. You need to know the truth before... The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone, while Juliet watched me with worried eyes. What are you going to do? Looking down at Edgar's folder, then at the merger documents that had started this all, I felt a smile creep across my face. I'm going to do what I do best, run this company. If that happens to make certain people uncomfortable, well, that's just business, isn't it? My computer pinged with a new email. Anonymous sender, subject line. What you don't know about Prudence Hill. Juliet! I called out as she turned to leave. Cancel my afternoon meetings. Looks like we have some digging to do. She grinned, already pulling out her tablet. Finally, some excitement around here. As I opened the email, I couldn't help but think about how I'd built my company focusing on women's empowerment, helping others find their strength after betrayal. Now here I was, faced with the ultimate test of my own principles. Would I choose revenge, or would I rise above it? The answer, I suspected, lay somewhere in Edgar's folder and this mysterious email. Either way, Anton and Trinity were about to learn what happens when you underestimate the woman you left behind. I picked up my phone and texted Prudence back. Meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bring everything you know about Anton's current projects. The response came instantly. Time to make them pay? I stared at her message for a long moment before replying. Time to uncover the truth, all of it. Whatever game was being played here, I had a feeling I was no longer just a pawn. The question was, who else was moving pieces on this board? The click of my heels echoed through Hoffman Industries' lobby as I walked in for the first transition meeting. Heads turned, whispers followed, and I caught the exact moment Anton recognized me, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth, face draining of color. "Welcome to your new workplace," I announced to the gathered employees, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I'm Marissa, CEO of Empower Solutions, and as of today, your new boss." Trinity, standing in the back corner, looked like she might faint. Good. Ms. Clayton, Xander, Anton's business partner, stepped forward with an extended hand. "We've heard impressive things about your leadership style." His smile seemed genuine, but there was something calculating in his eyes. "Thank you. I believe in transparency and direct communication," I said, looking straight at Anton. "Speaking of which, department heads, my office in 15 minutes. As the crowd dispersed, Juliet appeared at my elbow. "Prudence is waiting in the conference room with those files you requested. Tell her I'll be there shortly. And Juliet, keep an eye on Trinity. She looks ready to bolt." I'd barely reached the elevator when Anton caught up with me. "Marissa, wait! That's Miss Clayton to you," I cut him off, stepping into the elevator. To my annoyance, he followed. "You can't just walk in here and—" "Actually, I can. I own this company now. But don't worry, your position is safe." I smiled sweetly. For now. The elevator doors opened to reveal Trinity waiting in the hallway. "Marissa, please, can we talk?" "Office hours are between 9 and 5. Schedule it with my assistant." I walked past her, but her next words stopped me cold. It's about Edgar. He's not who you think he is." I turned slowly. "You have 2 minutes." Trinity glanced nervously at Anton, who stood watching us with clenched fists. "Not here, not with him around. My office, now." I led them both inside, where Prudence was already waiting with a stack of folders. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Prudence remarked dryly. "Shall I stay?" "Please do." I sat behind my desk, studying the 3 faces before me. "Talk." Trinity took a shaky breath. "Edgar's been manipulating company finances for years. Anton discovered it 6 months ago, but Edgar threatened to frame him if he spoke up." "That's convenient," I said, opening one of Edgar's folders. "Because according to these records, Anton's been doing some creative accounting himself." "Those documents are fake," Anton snapped. "Edgar set me up." "Like you set me up 5 years ago?" The words came out sharper than intended. "That wasn't—" Anton started, but my phone buzzed with another anonymous email. "Check Prudence's laptop. Folder marked Project Phoenix. Password Revenge 9985. I glanced at Prudence, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. "Everyone out," I ordered. "Except you, Prudence. We need to talk." As Anton and Trinity left, Xander appeared in the doorway. "Bad time?" "Ah, actually, your timing is perfect. Come in." I turned to Prudence. "Would you mind if I borrowed your laptop? There's something I need to verify." She hesitated just a fraction too long. "Of course not." "Interesting," Xander mused, watching the exchange. "You might want to see this first." He placed a USB drive on my desk. "Security footage from last week. Shows some rather interesting late-night meetings between certain parties." My phone buzzed again. "Don't trust anyone. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m., Carter's Cafe. Come alone." "Prudence," I said carefully, "why don't we reschedule our meeting? I'm sure you have plenty to handle with the transition." She gathered her things, face unreadable. "Of course, but Marissa, remember who helped you rebuild when you had nothing." After she left, Xander leaned forward. "You've stepped into a snake pit." "So I'm gathering. The question is, which snake bit first?" He smiled grimly. "That's what makes it interesting, isn't it? By the way, Trinity's been trying to resign for months. Edgar wouldn't let her." "Why?" That's the million-dollar question. He stood to leave. Watch your back, Marissa. Not everyone here is what they seem. After he left, I opened my email to find another anonymous message. Prudence Hill has been working with Edgar for years. But that's not the worst of it. Tonight, I'll tell you everything. I stared at the message, then at the USB drive Xander had left. Something bigger was at play here, something that went beyond my personal vendetta against Anton and Trinity. Juliet poked her head in. Your next meeting's in 5 minutes. Also, Trinity left this for you. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a single photo from that family reunion 5 years ago. Me, Trinity, and Anton, all smiling. On the back was written, "Things aren't always what they seem. I'm sorry for more than you know." I tucked the photo into my desk drawer. 8 hours until my meeting with the anonymous emailer. 8 hours to decide who to trust. If anyone. Carter's Cafe was nearly empty when I arrived at 7:55 p.m. The barista pointed me toward a corner booth, where, to my surprise, Edgar sat nursing a coffee. You're the anonymous emailer? I slid into the seat across from him. No. He pushed a manila envelope across the table. But I know who is. And after tonight, so will you. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Juliet. Urgent. Someone's accessing confidential files from Prudence's computer right now. Excuse me. I stood up, but Edgar grabbed my wrist. Wait. There's something you need to see first. He nodded toward the envelope. I sat back down and opened it. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Prudence meeting with Edgar at various locations over the past year. Trinity looking terrified while Edgar handed her something. Anton and Prudence having what appeared to be a heated argument outside a restaurant. What is this? Insurance, Edgar said quietly. Against what's about to happen. My phone buzzed again. This time from an unknown number. Don't trust Edgar. Check the cafe's kitchen. I looked up sharply. Why did you really sell your company? Because... A crash from the kitchen interrupted him. We both turned to see Xander stumbling out, clutching his side. He's got a gun, Xander gasped, collapsing into a nearby chair. Back door. I ran toward the kitchen, pushing through the swinging doors, just in time to see a figure disappearing through the exit. On the floor lay a laptop, Prudence's laptop. Stop! I shouted, but by the time I reached the door, they were gone. My phone rang. Juliet again. Prudence just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. She's trying to contest the acquisition. I returned to find Edgar gone, and Xander making a call. Police are on their way, he said, wincing. Just got knocked around a bit, I'm fine. But you need to see what's on that laptop. We opened it to find a single document open, Project Phoenix. My hands shook as I read through emails between Prudence and Edgar dating back 6 years. Before my divorce, before everything. They planned it all, I whispered. The divorce, the company sale, everything. Keep reading, Xander urged. The next email made my blood run cold. It was from Prudence to Edgar. Marissa's perfect for this. Once Anton leaves her, she'll be desperate enough to accept any help. We'll build her up just to take everything in the end. The ultimate revenge against her father for what he did to us. My father? What does he have to do with this? A lot, apparently. Trinity's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, looking exhausted. I've been trying to tell you. Prudence and Edgar were business partners with your father 20 years ago. He caught them embezzling and turned them in. Edgar went to prison. Prudence lost everything. And you know this how? Xander asked. Because they've been blackmailing me with it. My father helped cover up their original crime. They threatened to expose him if I didn't help them get to you through Anton. My phone buzzed with another anonymous message. Now you know why. Meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m., your office. Bring the laptop. The police will want to see this, Xander said. No, I replied firmly. Not yet. First, I want to hear what our mystery emailer has to say. I turned to Trinity. You're coming clean about everything tomorrow. No more secrets. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. Anton didn't either, not really. We were both just pawns in their game. Speaking of Anton, Xander checked his phone. He just texted me. Prudence called him in for a private meeting tonight. Let me guess. She's offering him a deal to testify against me at tomorrow's board meeting? Probably. What are you going to do? I picked up Prudence's laptop and the envelope of photos. I'm going to do what I should have done 5 years ago. Fight back. As if on cue, my phone lit up with texts from both Anton and Prudence. Anton, we need to talk. It's not what you think. Prudence, don't do anything rash, dear. Remember who your real friends are. I showed the messages to Xander and Trinity. Looks like everyone's choosing sides. And which side are you on? Xander asked carefully. I thought about the photos, the emails, the years of manipulation. I'm on the side of truth. Tomorrow morning, everything comes out. Every last dirty secret. Trinity touched my arm gently. Be careful. They've spent years planning this. So have I replied. I just didn't know it until now. As we left the cafe, police sirens wailing in the distance, I couldn't help but wonder, who would be left standing when the dust settled? The answer would come sooner than any of us expected. I arrived at my office at 6:45 a.m., coffee in hand, to find Anton already waiting outside my door. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, like he hadn't slept. Don't say anything, he blurted as I approached. Just look. He handed me his phone, showing a recording of his meeting with Prudence from the night before. In the video, Prudence sat behind her desk, calm and collected. It's simple, Anton. Either you help me take her down, or I release proof that you knew about the embezzlement all along. But I didn't know anything. Doesn't matter. I have documents that say you did. Your choice. I handed the phone back. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm done being their puppet. He ran a hand through his hair. What happened 5 years ago? It wasn't all what you think. Prudence approached me first, showed me fake evidence that you were stealing from the company. I was stupid enough to believe her. And Trinity? They used her to drive us apart. Said they'd destroy her father if she didn't play along. He checked his watch. She's meeting with the board right now, telling them everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Juliet. Prudence just arrived with 2 lawyers. Edgar's here too. Time to end this, I muttered, unlocking my office door. Inside, sitting calmly at my desk, was an elderly man I hadn't seen in 15 years. Hello, sweetheart, my father said quietly. What are you? I'm the anonymous emailer. He stood slowly. I've been tracking Prudence and Edgar for years, gathering evidence. When I heard they were targeting you, I had to act. You could have warned me 5 years ago, I said coldly. I tried. The night before Anton left, I came to your house. Prudence was there. She told you I was drunk, trying to cause trouble. Remember? I did remember. I'd turned him away. The door burst open, and Xander rushed in. They're calling an emergency vote to remove you as CEO. Right now. Like hell they are. I grabbed Prudence's laptop and the envelope of photos. Dad, you coming? He smiled. Wouldn't miss it. The boardroom was packed. Prudence stood at the head of the table, Edgar beside her, both looking supremely confident. Trinity sat in the corner, pale but determined. The board members watched in confused silence as we entered. Perfect timing, Prudence smiled. We were just discussing your removal for corporate espionage. Funny, I set the laptop on the table. I was about to discuss yours. You can't prove anything, Edgar snapped. Actually, my father stepped forward, we can prove everything. Prudence's face went white. Richard, you're supposed to be dead? He smiled grimly. Sorry to disappoint. I've been watching you destroy lives for too long. I connected the laptop to the projector. Let's start with Project Phoenix, shall we? Your grand plan for revenge against my father by destroying his daughter? It's all lies, Prudence declared, but her voice shook. The police have copies of everything, Xander announced, including the recording of you threatening Anton last night. Trinity stood up. I've already given my statement about the blackmail. As have I, Edgar said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. I'm tired, he continued. Prudence, it's over. I already signed a full confession this morning. You what? Prudence shrieked, lunging for him. 2 security guards I hadn't noticed stepped forward to restrain her. The SEC has been investigating for months, my father explained. Edgar chose to cooperate in exchange for leniency. I turned to the board members. Every document is in the folders in front of you. Take your time reviewing them. I'll be in my office. As I turned to leave, Prudence called out, You have no idea what your father did to us. No, I replied, but I know what you did to me. The difference is, I'm choosing to end the cycle of revenge. Back in my office, Anton waited with Juliet. The police are here, Juliet announced. They want statements from everyone. Tell them we're ready, I looked at Anton. All of us. He nodded. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, for everything. I know. I surprised myself by meaning it. We were all manipulated, but it ends today. My father touched my shoulder. You did good, kid. Better than I ever did. We're not done yet, I said, watching through my office window as Prudence was led away in handcuffs. The real work, rebuilding trust, healing relationships, that's just beginning. Speaking of which, Juliet interrupted, the board wants to meet again tomorrow. Something about discussing the company's new direction. I smiled. Tell them I look forward to it. After all, this company was built on empowerment and second chances. Maybe it's time we lived up to that. As everyone filed out to talk to the police, I sat at my desk, looking at that old photo Trinity had given me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's breaking free from the cycle that trapped you in the first place. My phone buzzed one last time. Proud of you, daughter. Coffee soon? For the first time in years, I replied, Yes. The morning after Prudence's arrest, I found Trinity waiting in my office, clutching a thick manila folder. There's more, she said without preamble. Prudence kept records of everything. I found these in her private safe after the police left. I took the folder, my coffee forgotten on the desk. Inside were photos, documents, and emails dating back 20 years. How did you get into her safe? She made me memorize the combination years ago. Insurance, she called it. Trinity's hands trembled. But that's not the worst part. Look at the last page. The document was dated just 3 days ago. A contract between Prudence and someone named Marcus, agreeing to transfer millions in company assets to offshore accounts. Who's Marcus? I asked. That would be me, a voice said from the doorway. A tall man in an expensive suit stepped in, followed by Xander. Marcus Reynolds, FBI. We've been tracking Prudence's network for years. You're kidding, I said flatly. I wish. Xander closed the door. Marcus contacted me 6 months ago. That's why I've been playing both sides. My phone buzzed. A text from Anton. Don't trust Marcus. Meeting in parking garage now. Urgent. Excuse me, I stood up. I need some air. Trinity grabbed my arm. Don't go alone. I'll be fine. Just keep our guests entertained. The parking garage was dim and eerily quiet. Anton stood by my car, looking nervous. Marcus isn't FBI, he said as soon as I approached. He's Prudence's son. What? That's why she did all this. Not just revenge against your father. She was building an empire for her son. I found proof in Edgar's office last night. A car engine roared to life somewhere in the garage. We need to go. Anton grabbed my hand. Now. We ran toward the exit, but a black SUV screeched to a stop in front of us. Marcus stepped out, pointing a gun. Going somewhere? Actually, yes. Juliet's voice rang out as she emerged from behind a pillar, phone held high. And this is all being live-streamed to the real FBI. Marcus spun around, but it was too late. Police cars flooded the garage, lights flashing. Drop the weapon! An officer shouted. Back in my office an hour later, I watched Marcus being led away in handcuffs while Detective Sarah Rivera took our statements. We've been building this case for months, she explained. Prudence's network goes deeper than anyone realized. Marcus was handling all the international accounts. But how did you know he'd be here today? I asked. Juliet grinned. Remember that security system upgrade I insisted on last week? Every conversation in this building has been monitored by the FBI. And I've been feeding them information, Xander added. The real FBI approached me long before Marcus did. Trinity sat heavily in a chair. So it's really over? Almost, my father said, walking in. There's still the matter of the board meeting in an hour. They'll want answers. They'll get them, I promised. Complete transparency from now on. Anton cleared his throat. About that, there's something else you should know. The night I left, Prudence showed me documents proving that your father was embezzling from his company. Those were forgeries, my father interrupted. But they were convincing enough that even I questioned my own records for a while. That's why you disappeared, I realized. You were gathering evidence to clear your name. And to protect you, though I failed at that part. No, I touched his arm. You helped end it. That counts for something. My phone buzzed with a message from the board. Meeting moved up. 15 minutes. Ready to face them? Juliet asked. Actually, I looked around the room at Anton, Trinity, my father, and the others. I think we all need to face them. Together. The boardroom fell silent as we filed in. I took my place at the head of the table, the others flanking me. Before we begin, I addressed the board. You should know that everything that's happened, the good, the bad, and the ugly, has taught me something crucial about leadership. It's not about revenge or power. It's about breaking cycles of hurt and creating something better. And how do you propose to do that? One board member asked. I smiled. By telling you the whole truth from the beginning. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Just honest business focused on genuine empowerment. Starting with this, Anton stepped forward, placing a folder on the table. My resignation, but also my full cooperation with any investigation. Trinity placed another folder beside it. Mine too, along with everything I know about Prudence's operations. The board members exchanged looks. Well, the chairman finally spoke, it seems we have a lot to discuss. Yes, I agreed. We do. And this time, we're going to do it right. As the meeting began, I caught my father's proud smile from across the room. Sometimes the hardest part of healing isn't exposing the truth. It's learning to trust again after the truth comes out. You need to see this. Juliet burst into my office 2 days after the board meeting, waving a tablet. Prudence's prison call logs. She's been contacting someone every hour on the hour. I took the tablet, scanning the numbers. These are all international calls. To a private bank in Switzerland, Xander added, walking in. The FBI traced them. There's still money missing. Millions. My father appeared in the doorway. And I think I know where it is. He held up an old photograph. Remember your mother's art gallery? The one that mysteriously burned down when I was 12? I stood up. What about it? It didn't burn down by accident. Prudence arranged it. Insurance fraud. Your mother's signature was forged on documents transferring ownership of several paintings to a private collector. Let me guess, I said. The collector was Marcus. Close. It was his father. My father placed the photo on my desk. Prudence's first husband. Trinity rushed in, breathless. Anton's gone. What do you mean, gone? He left this morning for a meeting with the FBI and never showed up. His phone's off, and his apartment's been cleared out. My phone rang. Detective Rivera. Anton just turned himself in, she said without preamble. He's offering evidence about art forgeries dating back 20 years. Says it involves your mother's gallery. I put the phone on speaker. We were just discussing that. What kind of evidence? Shipping manifests, bank transfers, insurance claims. He says Prudence has been using forged artwork as collateral for loans. The real paintings are in a vault somewhere. Switzerland, Xander cut in. That's what the calls are about. She's trying to move them. I know where, my father said quietly. Your mother told me before she died. There's a private vault in Geneva. She discovered it right before the gallery fire. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because Prudence threatened to hurt you if I did. After your mother's death, I couldn't risk it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Vault 247, passcode 031285. Hurry. That's my birthday, I whispered. It's a trap, Juliet warned. Probably, I agreed, but it's also our only lead. I'm coming with you, Trinity declared. We all are, Xander added. Detective Rivera's voice crackled through the speaker. I can have Interpol meet you there. When do you want to move? I looked at my father. How fast can you get us to Switzerland? My private jet's fueled and ready. I've been waiting for this moment for 20 years. 6 hours later, we stood outside the private vault facility in Geneva. Interpol agents positioned themselves discreetly around the building, while Detective Rivera coordinated with local authorities. Ready? My father asked. I entered the code. The vault door clicked open. Inside, instead of paintings, we found Marcus sitting calmly at a table. Took you long enough, he smiled. Mother said you'd figure it out eventually. Where are the paintings? I demanded. Safe, like Anton, like everything else we've worked for. It's over, Marcus. Detective Rivera stepped in, gun drawn. We have Anton's evidence. Do you? He slid a phone across the table. Call him. I dialed Anton's number. A phone rang somewhere in the building. Down here, Trinity called from the hallway. We found Anton in another vault, tied to a chair, but unharmed. I'm sorry, he said as we untied him. They grabbed me outside the FBI office. Marcus said he'd hurt Trinity if I didn't cooperate. The paintings? My father pressed. In there. Anton pointed to a large safe. But you need Prudence's fingerprint to open it. No, I smiled. We don't. I pulled out the photo my father had shown me earlier. We just need this. What's so special about that photo? Marcus demanded. Look at the frame, my father said. Your mother's fingerprints, preserved in the original varnish, from the day she stole it from my wife's gallery. Detective Rivera held up a portable scanner. Shall we? The safe clicked open, revealing dozens of carefully wrapped paintings. My mother's collection, I breathed. All of it. And proof of every fraud Prudence ever committed, my father added. She kept records with each painting. Marcus lunged for the door, but Xander was faster, tackling him to the ground. You know what the funny thing is? I told Marcus as Interpol agents cuffed him. None of this was necessary. 20 years of revenge, manipulation, and crime. For what? The gallery was already successful. The paintings were already valuable. You don't understand, he spat. It was never about the money. It was about making your family suffer like mine did. No, my father said quietly. It was about your mother's bitterness destroying everything she touched, including you. As we watched Marcus being led away, Trinity touched my arm. What happens now? I looked at the paintings, at Anton's apologetic face, at my father's tired eyes. Now we restore what was stolen, not just the art, but the truth. And then we move forward. Together? She asked hesitantly. Together, I confirmed. All of us. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't found in vaults. They're found in the moments when truth finally sets everyone free. 1 month after the Switzerland incident, I stood in my mother's restored gallery, now filled with their recovered paintings. The grand reopening was scheduled for tomorrow, but tonight was just for family. Whatever that meant now. The insurance company finally settled, Juliet announced, handing me a check. Full value of the original claim, plus 20 years of interest. Donate it, I decided, to art education programs. Mom would have liked that. Speaking of donations, Trinity walked in carrying a large canvas. Look what I found in Anton's storage unit. My breath caught. It was my mother's self-portrait, the one I thought had burned in the fire. She was beautiful, Anton said softly from the doorway. I've been keeping it safe since that night. Prudence ordered me to destroy it, but I couldn't. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I didn't deserve your forgiveness yet. He stepped forward. Maybe I still don't. That's not your call to make, my father interrupted, joining us. Forgiveness isn't earned, it's given. Your mother taught me that, he added, looking at me. The gallery door chimed. Detective Rivera entered with a thick folder. Prudence's sentencing is tomorrow, she announced. But there's something you should see first. She laid out several photographs on a nearby table. These were found in Marcus's apartment. The photos showed my mother with Marcus's father, laughing, embracing. They were having an affair, Detective Rivera explained, until your mother ended it and married your father instead. So this whole thing, I started, was Prudence's revenge for a love triangle from 30 years ago, my father finished. She married Marcus's father on the rebound, then spent decades plotting her revenge after he died. That's insane, Trinity whispered. That's human, Xander corrected, examining one of the photos. Love and hate are closer than we think. My phone buzzed. A message from the prison. Prudence requests a meeting before tomorrow's sentencing. Don't go, Anton warned. She's manipulative until the end. I have to, I replied. For closure. Then we're coming with you, Trinity declared. The prison visiting room was cold and sterile. Prudence sat waiting, her designer clothes replaced by an orange jumpsuit. My, quite the audience, she remarked as we all filed in. Say what you need to say, I told her. I just wanted you to know I did love your mother once. We were friends before she met Marcus's father. Before she stole him from me. She didn't steal anyone, my father cut in. She made a choice. A choice that destroyed lives, Prudence snapped. I lost everything. No, I leaned forward. You threw everything away, every relationship, every opportunity for happiness. You poisoned it all with revenge. And what about you? She challenged. Aren't you here for revenge too? I'm here for truth. There's a difference. The truth? She laughed bitterly. The truth is, you're just like me. We both built companies from nothing after betrayal. But that's where the similarity ends, Trinity spoke up. Marissa built something real. You just built more lies. Prudence's face hardened. You ungrateful little... That's enough, Detective Rivera interrupted. Time's up. As we turned to leave, Prudence called out, The paintings aren't worth what you think. I turned back. They're worth exactly what my mother always said. They're worth the truth they tell. And now, finally, they're telling the whole story. Back at the gallery, we gathered around my mother's self-portrait. Where should we hang it? Juliet asked. Right here, I pointed to the entrance wall, where everyone can see it first. No more hiding. To truth, Anton raised his coffee cup. To new beginnings, Trinity added. To family, my father said, putting his arm around me. The one we choose. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from the board. Emergency meeting tomorrow after the sentencing. Time to discuss the company's future. They want to know if you're keeping Anton and Trinity on, Xander guessed. No, I smiled. They want to know if I'm accepting the chairperson position. Apparently, running 2 successful companies while exposing a decades-old conspiracy makes for a pretty impressive resume. And are you? Juliet asked. I looked around at these people who had become my strange, complicated family, at the paintings that told our story of loss, betrayal, and redemption. Yes, I decided, but on one condition. We do it together. All of us. Even me? Anton asked quietly. And especially you, because the only way to truly break a cycle of revenge is to build something better in its place. As we raised our cups to toast the future, I caught my reflection in my mother's portrait. For the first time in years, I recognized her smile in my own. Tomorrow would bring Prudence's sentencing, a gallery opening, and a new chapter for the company. But tonight was about something simpler: the quiet victory of choosing love over revenge, truth over deception, and family over everything else. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, but only if you're willing to let go of revenge altogether. The gavel struck with finality as the judge delivered Prudence's sentence: 20 years without parole. As the courtroom cleared, Detective Rivera handed me an envelope. Found this in Marcus's apartment. Thought you should have it. Inside was a letter from my mother to Prudence, dated just days before the gallery fire. I forgive you. Whatever happens next, remember that. My hands trembled as I read it. She knew what Prudence was planning. Your mother always saw the best in people, my father said softly, even when they couldn't see it in themselves. The gallery opening was scheduled for that evening. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Ms. Clayton, what's next for Empower Solutions? Will Anton remain with the company? Any comment on Prudence's sentencing? I faced the cameras. Tonight isn't about business or revenge. It's about art, truth, and second chances. Join us at the gallery opening and see for yourself. Trinity touched my arm. Prudence asked to see you one last time. No, I said firmly. Her story with us is finished. It's time to write our own. The gallery hummed with excitement that evening. Art collectors, business leaders, and media filled the rooms, but my attention was on the small group gathered around my mother's self-portrait. I remember when she painted this, Anton said quietly. She told me to keep it safe, no matter what happened. I didn't understand then. But you protected it anyway, I replied. That counts for something. Speaking of protection, Xander approached with a tablet. The board just voted unanimously. The merger's complete, and they've approved your new leadership structure. All of it? Trinity asked. All of it. Joint leadership, profit sharing with employees, the education foundation, everything. My father raised his glass. To new beginnings. Wait, Juliet interrupted. There's something else you need to see first. She led us to a hidden panel behind my mother's portrait. Inside was a small journal and a USB drive. Your mother left instructions, my father explained. This was only to be opened when the paintings returned home. The journal contained detailed accounts of everything: the affair, Prudence's initial threats, the insurance fraud scheme. But it was the final entry that caught my breath. To my daughter, don't let bitterness win. Success isn't about revenge. It's about rising above what broke you. Build something beautiful from the ashes. The USB drive contained video messages, my mother speaking directly to camera, documenting her suspicions and hopes for the future. Play the last one, Trinity urged. My mother's face filled the screen, her smile exactly as I remembered. Say, if you're watching this, the truth has finally come out. Remember that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest choice you can make. And Marissa, darling, I'm so proud of the woman you've become. Tears streamed down my face as the video ended. Anton squeezed my shoulder. She was right, about everything. I know, I wiped my eyes, which is why we're doing this right. I climbed onto a nearby chair, clinking my glass for attention. Welcome, everyone. Tonight isn't just about recovering stolen art. It's about recovering lost truths and broken relationships. This gallery will now house the Restoration Foundation, dedicated to supporting artists and healing through art therapy. Applause filled the room. Additionally, I continued, Empower Solutions and the former Hoffman Industries will merge under a new name, Phoenix Rising Partners. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is rise above our past and help others do the same. Trinity stepped forward. The Foundation's first project launches next week, art therapy programs in women's prisons. Including where Prudence is, Anton added quietly. Especially there, I nodded. Because healing has to start somewhere. As the crowd dispersed to explore the gallery, Detective Rivera approached with news. Marcus took a plea deal. He's giving up everything he knows about the international art fraud ring. Good, my father said. Let him find his own path to redemption. Juliet appeared with contracts. Ready to make it official? I looked at our unlikely family, Anton, Trinity, Xander, my father, Juliet, each carrying their own stories of redemption. Actually, I set down the contracts. First, I want to show you something. I led them to a new painting I'd commissioned, a phoenix rising from ashes, but looking back with compassion at its former self. This is who we are now, I said, not defined by what broke us, but by how we chose to rebuild. Together, Trinity added. Together, we all echoed. The gallery lights dimmed, highlighting the paintings that had sparked so much pain and healing. My mother's portrait seemed to smile down at us, her final message echoing in my heart. Success isn't about revenge. It's about rising above what broke you. And that's exactly what we did.
The email from HR sat unopened in my inbox for 3 hours. I'd been staring at it between batches of laundry, between helping Noah with his math homework, between microwaving leftover mac and cheese that the kids wouldn't touch. My hands trembled as I finally clicked it open. My name is Taya, and exactly 1 year ago today, my husband of 10 years told me he'd found someone who understood him better. Her name was Sophia. She was 29, worked at his office, and apparently understood him so well that he packed his bags that same night. Mom, Noah took my iPad again. Sadie's voice pierced through my thoughts. Did not, came the predictable response from downstairs. I minimized the email and took a deep breath. Both of you, living room now. They trudged in, 8 and 6 years old respectively, wearing matching scowls that reminded me too much of their father. I settled the latest sibling dispute while my phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Did you open it yet? She wrote. About to. Kids fighting again. Girl, this could be your ticket out of retail hell. Read it. She wasn't wrong. The past year had been a blur of part-time jobs, mornings at the coffee shop, evenings at the mall, and late nights teaching myself to code while the kids slept. The coding had started as an escape, something to focus on besides the empty side of the bed and the dwindling bank account. But somewhere between JavaScript tutorials and Stack Overflow searches, I'd found something I was actually good at. Okay, guys, homework time, I announced, settling them at the kitchen table. 20 minutes, then we'll make dinner. Back at my laptop, I finally read the email from TechFront Solutions. The coding portfolio I'd submitted had caught someone's attention. They wanted an interview. My phone rang. Angela again. Well, she demanded. They want to meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Holy shit, Taya! This is huge! I glanced at the kids, lowering my voice. I can't do 2 p.m. I have a shift at the mall. Call in sick. This is more important than folding sweaters at Gap. I need that job, Ang. You need a career. Your kids need their mom to stop working herself to death. Call in sick. The truth in her words stung. Last week, I'd missed Sadie's soccer game because of a shift change. Noah had started asking why we couldn't go to the movies like his friends did. What if I'm not ready? I whispered. What if? Stop it, Angela cut in. You're ready. You're more than ready. You've been coding every night for months. Your GitHub looks amazing. Yes, I checked, even though I don't understand half of it. And you know what else? What? You're 10 times smarter than that asshole who left you for his child bride. I couldn't help but laugh. Sophia's 29. Whatever. Call them all. Take the interview. Show them what you can do. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the laptop screen. Dark circles under my eyes, hair desperately needing a trim. Weston had looked so satisfied when he'd told me about Sophia, like he was doing me a favor by being honest. You've let yourself go, he'd said, as if that justified everything. I opened my phone and called my supervisor at the mall. Janet? Hi, it's Taya. I hate to do this, but I'm not feeling well. Is there any way someone could cover my shift tomorrow afternoon? The kids looked up from their homework, surprised. Mom never called in sick. After arranging the coverage, I opened my coding projects and started reviewing. The familiar syntax brought a calm I hadn't felt all day. In the code, everything made sense. Everything had a solution. "Mom?" Sadie appeared at my elbow. "Can we have pizza tonight?" I should say no. The budget was tight, and we had perfectly good leftovers. "You know what? Yes, yes, we can have pizza." Their cheers made me smile. I closed my laptop and pulled them both into a hug, breathing in the scent of their shampoo and the lingering sweetness of their afternoon snacks. "Mom's got a big day tomorrow," I told them. "Want to help me pick out what to wear?" As we raided my closet, pulling out the few professional pieces I'd kept from my married life, I felt something shift inside me. The email wasn't just an interview invitation. It was a lifeline, a chance to show my kids and myself that rock bottom wasn't our final destination. "This one," Sadie declared, holding up my navy blazer. "You look like a boss in this one." Out of the mouths of babes. "You know what, sweetie? I think you're right." "Tell me about your experience with full-stack development," Hugo said, leaning back in his chair. His office overlooked the city, all glass and modern furniture, nothing like the fluorescent-lit mall where I'd spent my mornings. I took a deep breath, remembering Angela's pep talk. "I've built several applications from scratch, focusing on React for the front end and Node.js for the back end. My latest project was a scheduling system for small businesses that—" "I've seen it," he interrupted, tapping his tablet. "Clean code, intuitive interface. What interests me is how you learned all this in less than a year." "Necessity," I answered honestly. "When my husband left, I needed a way out of retail. Coding gave me that focus." Hugo's expression softened slightly. "And the determination to learn while raising 2 kids alone? They're my motivation. Every line of code is one step closer to giving them the life they deserve." He nodded, standing up. "Welcome to TechFront, Taya. Vivienne will show you around." Just like that, my life changed. Vivienne turned out to be a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "First rule," she said as we walked through the open office space. "No overtime unless absolutely necessary. We value work-life balance here." I almost laughed. Work-life balance? I've been working 2 jobs and learning to code at midnight. This feels like a vacation. Trust me, it won't for long. We're growing fast, and there are rumors of a major merger. She stopped at an empty desk. "This is you. Team meeting in 10 minutes. Ready to dive in?" The next few weeks passed in a blur. During the day, I immersed myself in code reviews and development sprints. At night, I helped with homework and tried to maintain some semblance of normal family life. "Mom, you look different," Sadie said one evening as I made dinner. Actual home-cooked dinner, not microwaved leftovers. "Different how?" "Happier," she decided, setting the table without being asked. "And you're home more." The doorbell rang before I could respond. Angela burst in, waving her phone. "Have you seen the news?" "What news?" "TechFront is merging with Global Tech. It's all over the business sites." My stomach dropped. Global Tech, Weston's company. "Are you sure?" "Look!" She thrust her phone at me. The headline confirmed my worst fear. That night, after the kids were asleep, Angela and I sat on my couch with wine glasses in hand. "What are the chances he'll even know you work there?" she reasoned. "Global Tech is huge." "But what if— No what ifs. You've earned this. Besides," she smirked, "wouldn't it be perfect karma if you ended up outranking him?" 3 months into my new job, Hugo called me into his office again. "Your team's performance has been exceptional," he said without preamble. "The merger's creating opportunities, and I'm restructuring the leadership team. How do you feel about taking on more responsibility?" I blinked. "What kind of responsibility?" "COO position. You'd oversee technical operations across both companies post-merger." My heart stopped. "That would mean—" "Yes, you'd be managing several divisions, including some from Global Tech. Problem?" I thought about Weston, about his condescending smile when he'd left, about the nights I'd spent crying while teaching myself to code. No problem at all. That evening, Presley, one of my direct reports, stopped by my desk. "Heard about the promotion. Not everyone's happy about it." "Because I'm new?" She shrugged. "Because you're good. You're shaking things up, and some people don't like change." "Thanks for the warning." It's not a warning, she smiled. It's a compliment. We need someone who isn't afraid to make waves. At home, I found Noah struggling with his tablet. Mom, it's broken again. I sat beside him, examining the device. Let's see. Just needs to clear the cache. Want to learn how to fix it yourself? His eyes lit up. Can I? Of course. First, we'll open settings. As I walked him through the steps, I realized how much had changed. 6 months ago, I'd been drowning in despair. Now, I was teaching my son basic troubleshooting while preparing to take on a role that would put me directly above my ex-husband in the corporate hierarchy. My phone buzzed with a message from Hugo. Meeting tomorrow to discuss merger details. Bring your restructuring ideas. I smiled, thinking of Angela's words about karma. Sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting it at all. It's simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. The boardroom buzzed with nervous energy as Hugo introduced me to the merger transition team. Our new COO will oversee the technical integration of both companies, he announced, gesturing for me to take the floor. I stood, smoothing my blazer, the same one Sadie had picked for my interview. Let's talk about optimization, I began, clicking through my presentation. Our first priority is identifying redundancies and streamlining operations across all divisions. A hand shot up from the global tech side. What exactly do you mean by redundancies? Some departments are underperforming, I replied, pulling up a chart. Particularly in the legacy systems division. Weston's division. I hadn't seen him yet. He was based in another office, but I knew his team's metrics. They were abysmal. After the meeting, Vivian caught up with me in the hallway. That was bold, targeting the legacy division right out of the gate. The numbers don't lie, I said, checking my phone. A text from the kid's sitter. Noah has a fever. Everything okay? Vivian asked. My son's sick. I need to... Go, she insisted. I'll handle the afternoon meetings. At home, I found Noah curled up on the couch, his normally energetic face flushed with fever. Mommy, he mumbled as I pressed a cool cloth to his forehead. I'm here, baby. I kicked off my heels and settled beside him. Want to watch a movie? He nodded weakly, snuggling closer. As we watched his favorite superhero film, my phone kept buzzing with emails about the merger. I ignored them all. The next morning, after a sleepless night of fever watches, I dropped a recovered Noah at school and headed to the office. Presley was waiting at my desk. You need to see this, she said, handing me a tablet. The Legacy Division's response to your presentation. I scrolled through their defensive justification for their poor performance. At the bottom was a familiar signature, Weston, Division Director. They're claiming our metrics are skewed, Presley continued. But I double-checked everything. They're just scared. Good, I muttered, then caught myself. I mean, fear can motivate change. There's something else. Presley lowered her voice. Rumor has it their director is coming to headquarters next week to challenge the numbers in person. My stomach clenched. Next week? Tuesday. Want me to sit in? I shook my head. I can handle it. That evening, I called Angela. He's coming here, I said as soon as she answered. To my office, to challenge my authority. Perfect, she exclaimed. This is your moment. My moment to what? Reveal that his ex-wife is now his boss? That seems deliciously karmic, because it is. I sighed, watching Sadie help Noah with his reading across the room. What if I'm letting this get too personal? Honey, he made it personal when he walked out on you and the kids. You're just doing your job. Extremely well, I might add. Later that night, I received an email from Hugo. Board wants accelerated timeline on restructuring. Need comprehensive plan by end of month. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Legacy Division's files. Weston's team wasn't just underperforming, they were actively resistant to change. Their systems were outdated, their processes inefficient, and their costs excessive. My phone pinged with a calendar invite. Tuesday, 10 a.m., Legacy Division Performance Review. As I stared at the invite, another email arrived, this one misdirected from Global Tech's internal system. The sender, Sophia. The recipient, Weston. Baby, I know you're stressed about the merger, it read. But maybe this is a sign. You've been talking about wanting a change anyway. We could finally move away, start fresh. I closed the email quickly, feeling like I'd glimpsed something I shouldn't have. But the words stuck with me. Weston was unhappy? Thinking of leaving? The thought brought an unexpected smile to my face. Mom? Sadie's voice pulled me back to reality. Can you help me with my science project? We're supposed to make a volcano. I closed my laptop. Of course, sweetie. Let me guess. Baking soda and vinegar? As we gathered supplies from the kitchen, I realized something. A year ago, I would have been devastated to learn Weston was planning another escape. Now? Now I was planning something of my own. My phone buzzed again. Vivian. Teams behind you on the restructuring. Let's show them what real leadership looks like. I texted back. Tuesday will be interesting. Then I turned back to my daughter and our volcano, pushing thoughts of Tuesday aside. The explosion would come soon enough. Tuesday arrived with the weight of an oncoming storm. I stood in the elevator, watching the numbers climb, when a familiar cologne hit me before I saw him. Weston stepped in, his eyes fixed on his phone. Good morning, I said quietly. He looked up, did a double take, and nearly dropped his device. Taya? What are you? The elevator dinged. I stepped out first. Fourth floor meeting? Yes, but follow me. I led the way to the conference room, aware of his confusion radiating behind me. Inside, Presley and Vivian were already seated, along with several other team members. Everyone, I announced, taking my place at the head of the table. Let's begin the Legacy Division Performance Review. Weston stood frozen in the doorway. You're the new COO? Please take a seat, I gestured professionally. We have a lot to cover. His face flushed as he sat down, fumbling with his presentation materials. I could feel everyone's eyes darting between us, sensing the tension. Your division's latest quarterly results, I began, displaying the charts. Care to explain these numbers? He cleared his throat. We've been transitioning systems. There were unexpected challenges. For the past 3 quarters? If I may, he straightened his tie, attempting to regain composure. Our team has decades of experience. We know what works. Clearly not, I interrupted, switching to the next slide. Your operating costs are 40% higher than comparable divisions, with 30% lower output. That's not experience. That's inefficiency. Presley slid a document across the table. Our proposed restructuring plan. Weston's hands shook slightly as he read. This is... You can't just... We can and we will, I stated firmly. You have 3 months to implement these changes. Or what? Or we'll find someone who can. After the meeting, Vivian caught up with me in my office. That was intense. You didn't mention you knew him. Would it have changed the facts? No, but... She paused as my phone rang. It was Noah's school. Ms. Stevenson, Noah's had an incident in the cafeteria. Nothing serious, but we need you to come pick him up. 20 minutes later, I found my son sitting outside the principal's office, tears streaking his face. He called me a liar, Noah burst out before I could ask. Jake said Dad doesn't want to see us anymore. That's why he missed my birthday. I pushed him. My heart cracked. Weston had promised to come to Noah's birthday last week, but canceled last minute. Something about an important meeting. Oh, honey. I pulled him close. Sometimes people say mean things because they're hurting too. Is it true? About Dad? No, baby. Dad loves you. He's just struggling right now. That evening, as I helped Sadie with her homework, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sophia. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Starbucks, 8 a.m. Mom, is this right? Sadie pushed her math worksheet toward me. Let me see. I focused on her multiplication problems, pushing thoughts of tomorrow's meeting aside. The next morning I arrived early. Sophia was already there, looking younger than I remembered, more uncertain. Thanks for coming, she said as I sat down. I know this is weird. What do you want, Sophia? It's about Weston. He's not handling things well. The merger, the review, finding out about you. That's not my problem anymore. Please, she leaned forward. He might lose his job. We're supposed to be getting married, but now he's talking about moving away, starting over. I felt a laugh bubble up. And you want me to what? Go easy on him? Protect his job? I just thought, for the kids, don't. My voice turned to ice. Don't you dare use my children to manipulate me. Weston chose this, all of it. His department is failing because he refuses to adapt, just like our marriage failed because he refused to work at it. I didn't mean... Meeting's over. I stood up, gathering my things. Tell Weston if he wants to keep his job, he needs to follow the restructuring plan. And if he misses another one of his children's birthdays, we'll be having a very different conversation. As I walked out, my phone pinged with a message from Hugo. Board loved your restructuring presentation. Keep pushing forward. I smiled, thinking of Noah's superhero movies. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming strong enough that they can't destroy you. Your dad's here, I told the kids as a familiar car pulled into our driveway. Remember, just 2 hours at the park. Sadie rolled her eyes. We know, Mom. Weston knocked instead of using his old key. Progress, I supposed. When I opened the door, he looked smaller somehow, his confident swagger replaced by uncertainty. They're ready, I said before he could speak. Have them back by 5. Taya, about the restructuring. Not now, not in front of them. The kids bounded down the stairs, backpacks ready for their park adventure. I hugged them goodbye, watching until Weston's car disappeared around the corner. My phone buzzed. Presley. Emergency at the office. Need you ASAP. I found the office in chaos. Someone had leaked details of the restructuring plan to the entire legacy division. Dozens of angry emails flooded my inbox, and Presley looked ready to pull her hair out. Half of Weston's team is threatening to quit, she explained, showing me the latest messages. They're saying we're destroying years of expertise. More like years of complacency, I muttered, scanning the emails. Call an all-hands meeting. Now. Within 30 minutes, the main conference room was packed. I stood at the front, facing the sea of worried faces. Let me be clear, I began. Change is not optional. This industry moves forward with or without us. Those who adapt will thrive. Those who don't. This is bullshit, someone shouted from the back. We've been here for years. And what do you have to show for those years? I countered. Outdated systems? Bloated processes? The world is digital now. Either evolve or become obsolete. Easy for you to say, another voice called out. You've been here, what, 6 months? In 6 months, I've increased efficiency by 35% in every department I've touched. How many of you can say the same? Silence fell over the room. The restructuring continues as planned, I finished. My door is open to anyone who wants to be part of the solution. The rest of you, well, that's your choice to make. After the meeting, Vivian appeared in my office. That was ruthless. That was necessary. Maybe, she sat down, but there's something you should see. She handed me a printed email chain. My eyes widened as I read. Messages between Weston and several board members, questioning my objectivity, suggesting personal bias in the restructuring plan. He's trying to undermine me, I said, my voice tight. He's trying to save himself. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone rang, the kid's emergency ringtone. My heart stopped. Hello? Mom? Sadie's voice trembled. Noah fell at the park. He's bleeding. Where's your father? Talking on the phone about work. Mom, there's a lot of blood. I was already grabbing my keys. Put pressure on it, honey, I'm coming. I found them at the emergency room. Noah sat on an exam table, sporting 6 stitches above his eye. Weston paced nearby, still on his phone. What happened? I demanded. He was climbing the monkey bars, Weston started. While you were what? Plotting against me at work? His face paled. Taya, I can explain. Save it. I turned to Noah, gently examining his stitches. You okay, baby? He nodded bravely. The doctor said I'm tough. Toughest kid I know, I agreed, then faced Weston. We're done here. I'm taking them home. Taya, please. You want to play office politics? Fine. But you do not put our children at risk while doing it. At home, after the kids were settled with ice cream and movies, I received an email from Hugo. Board meeting tomorrow. Bring everything you have on the Legacy Division's performance. I opened my laptop, pulling up files, metrics, and documentation. If Weston wanted a war, I'd give him one. But I'd fight it my way, with facts, figures, and irrefutable evidence of his division's failures. My phone lit up with a text from Angela. Heard about Noah. Need backup? No, I replied, but I might need a witness when I destroy his father's career tomorrow. That's my girl. Want me to take the kids after school? I looked at Noah dozing on the couch, his sister protectively close. Yes, tomorrow's going to be a long day. As I prepared for bed, another email arrived, from Sophia this time, but sent to Weston and accidentally copied to me. Baby, maybe we should reconsider the transfer. Your ex-wife clearly has it out for you. I smiled, saving the email as evidence. Sometimes Karma needed a little help, and I was more than happy to assist. The board meeting room felt like a courtroom, with Hugo at the head table and 12 pairs of eyes fixed on me. Weston sat across the room, Sophia surprisingly present beside him. She wouldn't meet my gaze. Let's address the elephant in the room, Hugo began. Weston has raised concerns about potential personal bias in our restructuring plans. Taya, your response? I stood, connecting my laptop to the projector. I'll let the data speak for itself. The first slide appeared, a devastating comparison of division performances. These aren't my numbers, I explained. These are independently audited figures spanning the past 3 years. That's not the point, Weston interrupted. This is clearly personal. Personal? I clicked to the next slide. Like missing your son's birthday for a meeting that, according to the company calendar, never existed, or being on your phone discussing office politics while our child needed emergency stitches? That's not fair. What's not fair, I continued, is watching talented team members stagnate under leadership that refuses to innovate. I distributed folders to each board member. These are resignation letters from 6 of your top developers, all citing resistance to necessary technological updates. Sophia touched Weston's arm as he started to respond, but he shrugged her off. You're trying to destroy everything I've built, he accused. You're doing that yourself. I pulled up an email on the screen. This was sent to your team last month, explicitly instructing them to ignore the new implementation protocols. The board members leaned forward, reading. Hugo's expression darkened. That's a private communication, Weston protested. Nothing is private when it violates company policy. I turned to the board. The Legacy Division isn't failing because of personal vendettas. It's failing because its leader is more interested in maintaining control than adapting to change. Sophia suddenly stood up. This isn't right. Tell them, Weston. Tell them what? He snapped. About the job offer in Seattle. About how you've been planning to leave anyway. The room fell silent. Hugo raised an eyebrow. Is this true? Weston's face reddened. I was exploring options. While actively undermining our restructuring efforts, I finished, putting both the company and your team at risk. I think we've heard enough, Hugo announced. Weston, please wait outside while we discuss this matter. As Weston and Sophia left, I caught a glimpse of their expressions, his angry, hers disappointed. The sight brought no satisfaction, only a hollow feeling in my chest. 20 minutes later, Hugo called me to his office. The board has decided to accelerate the restructuring, he said. Weston will be offered a choice, accept a demotion or take a severance package. And if he fights it? The evidence is clear. He won't win. My phone buzzed. Angela. Kids are good. Noah's showing off his stitches like battle wounds. You okay? Before I could respond, there was a knock. Sophia stood in the doorway. Can we talk? She asked. Alone? Hugo nodded, leaving us. I'm sorry, she said immediately. About everything. The park incident, the undermining, all of it. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know. He did the same thing to me that he did to you. Made promises, blamed others for his failures. Always had an escape plan ready. I sat down heavily. The Seattle job? Doesn't exist. It was just another fantasy he used to avoid responsibility. She smiled sadly. You're better at this than I ever was. Standing up to him, I mean. Practice makes perfect, I replied dryly. My phone buzzed again, Sadie this time. Mom, can we have pizza tonight? Noah says his stitches deserve pizza. Looking at the message, I felt the tension leave my body. This wasn't about Weston anymore. It never really was. I have to go, I told Sophia. My kids need me. Of course, she hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm ending things with him. I deserve better. Yes, I agreed. You do. On my way out, I passed Weston sitting alone in the hallway, head in his hands. For a moment, I remembered the man I'd married. Ambitious, charming, full of dreams. But that man had vanished long ago, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The HR team will contact you tomorrow, I said professionally as I walked past. Taya, wait. Goodbye, Weston. In my car, I finally replied to Angela. Kids still up for a sleepover? I need a pizza party with my favorite people. Already ordered. Extra cheese, just like Noah likes it. I smiled, starting the engine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning or losing. It's about knowing exactly who you are and what matters most. And right now, what mattered most was waiting for me with pizza and battle stories about 6 brave stitches. He took the severance, Vivian announced, dropping into the chair across from my desk. Signed the papers this morning. I nodded, focusing on my laptop screen. And the team? Already responding well to the interim leadership. Presley's handling the transition beautifully. My phone lit up with a text from Weston. Need to talk about the kids. Coffee. Everything okay? Vivian asked, noticing my expression. Just loose ends to tie up. I texted back, pick them up from school today. We'll talk then. The school parking lot was quieter than usual when I arrived. Weston was already there, looking disheveled in a way I'd never seen before. No tie, wrinkled shirt, 3 days of stubble. Sophia left, he said as soon as I approached. I know. She said I never changed, that I did to her what I did to you. The kids burst out of the school before I could respond. Noah spotted us first, his stitches now just a red line above his eye. Dad? Mom? His voice wavered with uncertainty. Hey, buddy, Weston knelt down. I owe you an apology. About the park, about your birthday, about a lot of things. Sadie hung back, watching with arms crossed, a miniature version of my own defensive stance. Are you moving to Seattle? She asked bluntly. Weston flinched. No, sweetheart. I'm staying right here. If that's okay with you guys. Why should we believe you? Her voice cracked slightly. I touched her shoulder. Sadie. No, she's right, Weston interrupted. I haven't given you any reason to trust me, but I'm asking for a chance to do better. Noah moved closer to his sister. You made Mom cry. A lot. I know. Weston's eyes met mine briefly. I made a lot of mistakes, but losing my job, losing Sophia, it made me realize what really matters. Ice cream, I said suddenly. What? 3 confused faces turned to me. Let's get ice cream. We can talk more there. At the ice cream parlor, watching the kids deliberate over flavors, Weston spoke quietly. I'm sorry, Taya, for everything. I'm not the one who needs to hear that anymore. I know, but they do, and I don't know how. Start by showing up, I said firmly. Not just when it's convenient. Every time you say you will. Build trust back one promise at a time. Like you did, with your new career. I did that for them, and for me. The kids returned with towering sundaes. Noah had chocolate sauce dripping down his chin within seconds. Dad, Sadie said between bites, if you're staying, will you come to my soccer game Saturday? I'll be there. Promise? Her eyes narrowed. Front row, with one of those embarrassing parent signs if you want. She almost smiled. Almost. Back at the school parking lot, Weston hugged the kids goodbye. Saturday, he confirmed. I promise. As he walked to his car, my phone buzzed. Hugo. Board wants to discuss expanding your role. Dinner meeting tomorrow? Everything okay, Mom? Sadie asked as we drove home. Better than okay, I assured her. How about you? She considered this. I'm still mad at Dad. But? But maybe people can change, like you did. That evening, as I helped Noah with his reading, Angela called. Heard Weston took the severance. How are you feeling? Surprisingly peaceful. Really? No urge to gloat? No victory dance? I watched Noah sound out a difficult word, his face scrunched in concentration. The victory isn't in destroying him, it's in building something better from the wreckage. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between learning Python and running a company. After putting the kids to bed, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine. My phone lit up with an email from Presley. Team morale at an all-time high. You should see the innovations they're proposing now that they feel heard. Another text came through from Weston. Thank you, for today, for not telling them about Seattle, for everything. I didn't reply. Some messages don't need answers. Some chapters need to close quietly. Instead, I opened my laptop and began working on tomorrow's presentation for the board. On my screen, lines of code merged with business projections, creating something new, something better, just like us. Mom, Dad's sign is so embarrassing, Sadie groaned, but I caught her secret smile as she ran onto the soccer field. True to his word, Weston stood on the sidelines holding a glitter-covered poster that read, Go Sadie, kick some grass. Noah sat beside him, adding more sparkles to the already bedazzled creation. I settled into my camping chair, laptop balanced on my knees. The quarterly reports could wait. My daughter was about to play striker for the first time. Quite the sign, Vivian commented, surprising me as she claimed the chair next to mine. Mind if I join? My nephew's on the opposing team. You came to watch soccer on a Saturday? She shrugged. After your presentation yesterday, I figured I should see what work-life balance actually looks like. The board meeting had been unexpected. Instead of just discussing my role expansion, they'd wanted my vision for the company's future. I'd talked about flexible schedules, remote work options, and family-friendly policies. We're a tech company, I'd told them. We should be leading the way in how people work, not just what they work on. On the field, Sadie intercepted a pass. The crowd cheered as she dribbled toward the goal. That's my girl, Weston shouted, waving his sign wildly. He's different, Vivian observed. He's trying, I corrected. That's what matters. Sadie scored, and Noah launched himself at his father in celebration, sending glitter everywhere. I couldn't help laughing at their sparkly joy. My phone buzzed. Angela. Sorry I'm late. Traffic. Did I miss anything? Just your goddaughter's first goal as striker. What? Stall the game. I'm 5 minutes away. During halftime, Weston approached my chair. Hugo called me yesterday. Oh? He's offering me a consulting position. Said something about valuable institutional knowledge that shouldn't go to waste. He paused. Did you? The company needs people who understand its history, I said, as long as they're also willing to embrace its future. Thank you. Don't thank me. Prove it was the right call. The second half started, and Angela finally arrived, bearing victory popsicles for after the game. As we watched Sadie play, I felt my laptop sliding off my knees. I'll take that, Vivian said, catching it. You've got a game to watch. When the final whistle blew, Sadie's team had won 3-1. She ran to us, sweaty and beaming. Did you see? Did you see my goal? We all saw, I assured her, pulling her close despite the sweat. Every amazing second. Even the part where I stole the ball from that kid who called Noah names last week? Especially that part, Weston grinned. Later, at the post-game pizza celebration, I watched my children. Noah was teaching Weston some coding basics he'd learned from me, while Sadie regaled Angela with a play-by-play of her victory. Your team's quarterly numbers came in, Vivian mentioned, sliding into the booth beside me. Best performance in company history. The team did the work. I just gave them room to shine. Like you did with him? She nodded toward Weston. No, I said thoughtfully. I gave myself room to shine. Everything else just followed. My phone lit up with a message from Hugo. Board approved all your proposals. The future looks bright. Mom, Noah called out. Dad doesn't understand a raise. Can you explain it to him? I looked at my son, his stitches now just a faint line, his eyes bright with the joy of teaching something new. At Sadie, still in her soccer uniform, gesturing wildly as she described her goal. At Weston, humbled but present, genuinely trying to understand both a raise and his children. Coming, I said, sliding out of the booth. But first, who wants more pizza? A chorus of me erupted from the table. As I walked to the counter, I caught my reflection in the window. I saw someone I barely recognized, stronger, happier, whole. Not because of revenge or success or even forgiveness, but because I'd finally learned to code my own life, debugging the parts that didn't work and building something better in their place. Hey, Angela called out. You okay over there? I turned back to my family, the one we'd rebuilt from the ground up with new functions and better protocols. Never better, I replied. And for the first time in forever, it was absolutely true.
The banging on my front door started at exactly 3:17 a.m. I know because I'd been staring at my phone for hours, watching Andre's on my way message collect dust since 8 p.m. 3 loud knocks, a pause, then 2 more. My heart jumped into my throat. I'm Yolanda, and until that moment, I thought I knew what my life was. Financial analyst, loving wife, daughter of the greatest poker player I'd ever known. Funny how quickly labels can peel away. Mrs. Burton, a gravelly voice carried through the door. We know you're home. Cars in the driveway. I crept to the peephole, my bare feet silent against the hardwood. 2 men stood outside, one tall and lean with silver-streaked hair, the other built like a linebacker. Both wore expensive suits that didn't quite hide their rough edges. Andre's not here, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. The silver-haired man, Russell, I'd later learn, chuckled. Oh, we know that, sweetheart. But see, Andre owes us quite a bit of money, and since you're his wife. My fingers trembled as I opened Andre's text messages. 6 months of working late excuses, mysterious weekend business trips, all lies. I don't know anything about any money, I said, my mind racing to the joint account I'd checked just yesterday. The one that should have held our life savings, the one that now showed a balance of $1342. $300,000, the linebacker said, plus interest. The number hit me like a physical blow. I slid down the wall, my legs giving out. That's impossible. Your husband's quite the optimist, Russell said. Always thought the next bet would turn things around. Check your bedroom closet, Mrs. Burton. Behind the shoe rack, there's an envelope. I ran upstairs, my heart pounding. The envelope was there, tucked behind my winter boots. Inside, a single sheet of paper with Andre's messy scrawl. I had no choice. I'm sorry. Don't try to find me. Found it, didn't you? Russell called up. We'll be back tomorrow night. Same time. Have a plan for our money, or things get uncomfortable. Their footsteps retreated. I heard car doors slam, an engine start. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Lacey. You okay? Just saw a black SUV leave your driveway. I couldn't answer. Instead, I sat on my closet floor, surrounded by Andre's empty hangers, and remembered my father's voice from years ago. Baby girl, he'd said, shuffling his ever-present deck of cards. In poker and in life, there are 2 kinds of players, those who fold when they're dealt a bad hand, and those who learn to play it anyway. Dad had been the best poker player in 3 states. He'd taught me everything he knew before cancer took him last year. Andre had been at the funeral, holding my hand, promising to always be there. Another lie. My phone buzzed again. Lacey, I'm coming over. No, I texted back. I'm fine. Talk tomorrow. I wasn't fine. I was terrified, angry, and something else. Something that felt dangerously like my father's steel-eyed focus before a big game. I went to my office and booted up my laptop. First, I checked our other accounts, all drained. Credit cards, maxed out. Then I started searching for Andre's digital footprints, social media, email, phone records. He'd vanished like smoke. But he'd taught me one thing during our 5 years together. Everyone leaves traces. You just have to know where to look. The sun was rising when I found my first lead, a poker forum Andre had been active on. His username was subtle, but I recognized his writing style. He'd been in contact with someone called Sandstorm about underground games. I opened my bottom desk drawer and pulled out Dad's old deck of cards. The familiar feel of worn cardstock against my fingers brought back hours of lessons at our kitchen table. Every tell has a tell, Dad would say. Every player has a weakness. Your job is to find it before they find yours. I started shuffling, muscle memory taking over. My hands stopped shaking. $300,000. The bookies would be back in less than 24 hours. I had 2 options, fold or play. I thought of Andre's note. I had no choice. There's always a choice. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Someone who knew computers the way my father knew cards. Poppy, it's Yolanda. Remember how you always said you owed me one? I need your help. The cards whispered against each other as I shuffled, and for the first time since the knocking started, I smiled. Game on. Poppy hadn't changed much in 10 years. Same wild red hair, same mischievous glint in her eyes, same tendency to type faster than she talked. She sat cross-legged on my living room floor, surrounded by laptops and energy drink cans, while I paced. You really married a moron, she said, fingers flying across keyboards. He used the same password for everything. Everything. Can you find him? Already did. Your boy's in Macau. She spun one laptop around. Used his credit card at the airport 3 days ago. But that's not the interesting part. I stopped pacing. What is? The interesting part is what I found in his email drafts. Come look at this. I knelt beside her, scanning the screen. Dozens of spreadsheets, each filled with names, dates, and numbers. My stomach turned when I recognized some of the names. Local business owners, a city council member, even a judge. These are all people who owe them money? I asked. Better. These are people who've been paying them money. Look at the patterns. Poppy highlighted several rows. Monthly payments, always the same amount. This isn't gambling debt, it's protection money. A sharp knock at the door made us both jump. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. again, right on schedule. Hide, I whispered to Poppy. She grabbed her laptops and disappeared into the kitchen. I opened the door to find Russell and his linebacker friend. Evening, Mrs. Burton, ready to discuss payment options. Come in. I stepped aside. My heart racing but my voice steady. Would you like coffee? Russell raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the invitation. How hospitable. Black, 2 sugars. I led them to the living room, where I'd set up my father's old poker table. 3 cups of coffee waited, steam rising in the dim light. Interesting choice of furniture, Russell said, running his fingers along the felt. It was my father's, Sylvester Gross. You might have heard of him. The linebacker's eyes widened slightly. Russell's smile tightened. The silver fox? That was your father. The very same. I sat down, gesturing for them to join me. So about Andre's debt. 300,000, Russell said, plus 20% interest. That's quite a sum. I took a sip of coffee, almost as impressive as your protection racket. Russell's hand froze halfway to his cup. Excuse me? I pulled out my phone and opened the files Poppy had sent me. Would you like to see your spreadsheets? The ones detailing payments from Judge Matthews, or maybe Councilman Peters. Where did you get those? The linebacker started to stand, but Russell held up a hand. Careful, Mrs. Burton. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm my father's daughter. Games are what I do best. I met his gaze. Here's my offer. You write off Andre's debt, and these files stay private. Russell laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or I could have my friend here take your phone and break your fingers. You could, I agreed. But then the encrypted files, already sent to 3 different news outlets, would automatically decrypt at noon tomorrow. Plus, I imagine the FBI would be very interested in the offshore accounts I found. From the kitchen, I heard the faint sound of Poppy's typing. Right on cue, Russell's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face darkening. "Just sent you a sample," I said. "Consider it a preview." Russell stood slowly, straightening his jacket. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "Actually, I do. I'm getting into the same game you are, just playing it better." I stood as well. "You have until noon tomorrow to decide. After that, I start showing my cards." "This isn't over," Russell said, moving toward the door. The linebacker followed, cracking his knuckles meaningfully. "One more thing," I called after them. "Touch me or anyone I know, and everything releases immediately." I learned about dead man's switches from the best. The door slammed behind them, my legs turned to jelly, and I collapsed onto the couch. Poppy emerged from the kitchen, grinning. "That was badass. But you know they're not going to just give up, right?" "Of course not." I pulled out my father's cards and started shuffling. "That's why we're going to Plan B." "Which is?" I dealt 2 hands face down. "We're going to find every game Andre played in. Every player he lost to. Every dealer who watched him lose." I flipped over my cards. Pocket aces. "And we're going to follow the money all the way to the top." Poppy picked up her cards and smiled. "You know what? I think I missed you." "Good, because I need your help with one more thing." I reached for my laptop. "Tell me everything you know about underground poker apps." As Poppy launched into an explanation about encrypted messaging and digital currencies, I felt my father's presence in the room. Almost heard his voice. "The best players don't just play the cards, baby girl. They play the people holding them." I was counting on it. The underground poker room smelled like expensive cigars and cheap desperation. I adjusted my wig, a sleek black bob that Poppy insisted made me look dangerous, and counted my chips. $20,000, borrowed from my sister Lacey, after I'd promised her it wasn't for anything illegal. Technically, I hadn't lied. Poker itself wasn't illegal. Everything else about this place was. "Martini, miss?" A young server appeared at my elbow. His name tag read Dean. "Vodka tonic," I said, using the code phrase Poppy had discovered on the forums. With a twist of fate, Dean's eyes flickered with recognition. "Right this way." He led me past the main gaming floor to a private room in the back. 5 players sat around a felt-topped table, with one empty seat waiting. Russell occupied the dealer's position, shuffling cards with practiced precision. "Well, well," he said, looking up. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Diana," I replied, using the alias Poppy had created, complete with a digital background that would hold up to any quick searches. "I heard this was where the real games happen." "You heard right." Russell gestured to the empty chair. 10,000 minimum buy-in. I counted out my chips, feeling the weight of the hidden camera in my necklace. Poppy was watching everything from her van outside, recording every face, every transaction. The first few hands went exactly as planned. I played cautiously, lost small pots, won smaller ones, let them think I was just another rich thrill seeker out of her depth. "Raise 20,000, said the man to my left. A sweaty developer I recognized from Andre's spreadsheets. I looked at my cards again, Queen and Jack of Hearts. The flop showed the 10 and King of Hearts, 1 card away from a royal flush. "Call," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. The turn card was the 9 of clubs. "Useless. All in," the developer announced, pushing his chips forward. I touched my father's old ring, now serving as my good luck charm. He'd taught me this exact scenario. "When someone bets big on a draw," he'd said, "they're usually holding air and hoping you'll fold." "Call," I said, pushing in my remaining chips. The river card came. Ace of Hearts. The developer's face fell as I revealed my royal flush. As I raked in the chips, I caught Russell studying me with newfound intensity. "Impressive," he said. "Your play style reminds me of someone my father taught me," I replied truthfully. "He was old school." "Was. Cancer." Also true. The best lies, Dad always said. Stick close to the truth. 3 hours and several strategic wins later, my chip stack had tripled. I was about to call it a night when Dean appeared again. "Phone call for you, Mr. Russell. Says it's urgent." Russell excused himself. Through my earpiece, I heard Poppy whisper, "That's our distraction. Check his office now." I waited 2 hands, then stood. "Powder room?" Dean pointed me down a hallway. As soon as I was out of sight, I slipped into Russell's office. The door was locked, but Poppy had prepared me for that. 10 seconds with the electronic lock picker, and I was in. The office was minimal. Just a desk, computer, and filing cabinet. I plugged Poppy's USB drive into the computer, letting it do its work. 30 seconds to copy everything. "Someone's coming." Poppy's voice crackled in my ear. I yanked out the drive and turned to leave, but the door was already opening. Dean stood there, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be in here," he said, but made no move to raise an alarm. "Neither should you," I replied, studying his face, young, nervous, with something like guilt in his eyes. "I know who you are," he said quietly. "You're Andre's wife." My blood froze. "Are you going to tell Russell?" Dean glanced over his shoulder, then stepped into the office, closing the door. "No, but you need to be careful. Russell, he doesn't just break kneecaps anymore. Last guy who crossed him disappeared." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've seen what they do to people. And because," he swallowed hard, "Andre wasn't the only one they trapped. Some of us didn't have a choice." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Dean quickly opened the door. "Bathroom's the next door over, ma'am," he said loudly. I slipped past him, heart pounding. When I returned to the table, Russell was back, watching me with those calculating eyes. "Leaving so soon?" he asked as I collected my chips. "Quit while you're ahead, that's my motto." I smiled, all confidence on the outside while my insides trembled. "Smart girl," he said. "We'll see you again soon, I hope." It wasn't a hope, it was a threat. As I left the club, Dean caught my eye one last time. His look was clear. "Be careful." I touched my father's ring again. Careful wasn't part of the plan anymore. "You've lost your mind," Lacey said, pacing my kitchen. "Completely lost it. First the money, now this?" She waved the USB drive like it was radioactive. "Do you know what Russell did to the Martinez family when they couldn't pay?" "I know exactly what he did," I replied, watching Poppy work her magic on my laptop. "That's why we're doing this." "We?" Lacey threw up her hands. "There shouldn't be a we. There shouldn't be anything except you calling the police." "Got it," Poppy interrupted, spinning the laptop around. "You're going to want to see this." The screen showed a series of emails between Russell and someone called Badge 647. My stomach dropped as I read through them. "They've got a cop on payroll," Poppy explained, highlighting key passages. "Detective Marcus Wright. He's been burying evidence, tipping them off about raids." Lacey stopped pacing. "That's why nobody can touch them." "It gets worse," Poppy continued typing. "Look at these payment records. They're not just running poker games. They're laundering money through half the businesses in town." A knock at the door made us all freeze. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Dean stood outside, looking nervous. "What's he doing here?" Lacey hissed. "Only one way to find out." I opened the door, keeping the security chain on. "Yes, Russell knows," Dean blurted out. "Someone saw you with the USB drive. He's on his way, right now." I yanked him inside and locked the door. "Poppy, pack up. Lacey, get your car ready." "No time," Dean said. "They're all ready." Headlights swept across the windows as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. "Back door," I ordered, grabbing my laptop and the USB drive. We rushed through the kitchen just as someone started pounding on the front door. "Mrs. Burton," Russell's voice carried through the house. "Let's have a chat about computer privacy." We slipped out the back just as the front door splintered open. Lacey's car was parked in the alley, thank God. We piled in, me in front, Poppy and Dean in back. "Drive," I commanded. Lacey floored it. "They're following," Poppy reported, looking back. 2 cars. Call Detective Santos, I told Lacey. The one from Dad's poker nights. Tell her everything. You know a clean cop? Dean asked, ducking as a car behind us accelerated. Dad always said, keep one ace up your sleeve. I gripped the dashboard as Lacey took a sharp turn. He played poker with her every Thursday for 15 years. The SUVs were gaining. One pulled alongside us, trying to force us toward the curb. Left, I shouted. Take the bridge. Lacey swerved onto the bridge approach. They're going to trap us. That's the plan. I pulled out my phone and opened the files Poppy had copied. Poppy now. She hit a button on her laptop. Suddenly, every digital billboard on the bridge lit up with Russell's spreadsheets, names, dates, amounts, including Detective Wright's payments. What did you do? Dean whispered. Created a spectacle. Poppy grinned. Those billboards are streaming live to every news station in the city. The SUVs behind us slowed, then stopped. Through the rear window, I saw Russell standing in the street, phone to his ear, watching his empire implode. On screens 50 feet high, police units are converging on the bridge, Lacey reported, still on the phone with Detective Santos. They want us to pull over at the north end. 5 minutes later, we sat in Detective Santos's office, watching the chaos unfold on TV. Russell and his men were in custody. Detective Wright was being led out of the precinct in handcuffs. The news was calling it the biggest corruption bust in city history. Your father would be proud, Detective Santos said, setting down 4 cups of coffee, and probably terrified. You took one hell of a risk. Speaking of risks, Dean spoke up. What about me? They'll know I helped. Witness protection, Detective Santos replied. If you're willing to testify, Dean nodded slowly. Yeah, I am. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My heart stopped when I opened it. What is it? Lacey asked. Andre. I showed them the screen. He's in custody in Macau. They're extraditing him. Are you okay? Lacey put her arm around me. I thought about the last few weeks, the fear, the anger, the rush of outsmarting Russell at his own game. I thought about Andre's note. I had no choice. Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. I really am. So what now? Poppy asked. I pulled out my father's deck of cards and started shuffling. The familiar motion felt different now, less like comfort and more like victory. Now, I said, we make sure this never happens to anyone else. Detective Santos smiled. Deal me in. The holding cell smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Andre sat across from me, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame, looking smaller than I remembered. 3 weeks in a Macau detention center had hollowed his cheeks and darkened the circles under his eyes. You look different, he said, studying my face. The hair, a lot's different. I placed my father's deck of cards on the metal table between us. Start talking. Yolanda, not about us, about Russell's operation. Every game, every player, every corrupt cop you know about. I started dealing cards, the way Dad taught me to keep my hands steady during tough conversations. Detective Santos needs everything. Andre watched the cards fall. They'll kill me. They're going to prison. The question is how long you'll join them. I dealt the final card. Your choice. He picked up his cards, muscle memory from countless games at our kitchen table. I never meant for any of this to happen. The first time I lost big, Russell offered to let me deal for him instead of breaking my legs, said I could work off the debt. And it worked, at first. But then he started asking for more, said I had to bring in new players, wealthy ones. If they lost big, he'd force them to launder money through their businesses. Andre's hands shook. When I tried to quit, he threatened you. So you ran. I thought if I disappeared, they'd leave you alone. He looked up, eyes wet. How did you do it? Take them down? I gathered the cards back into the deck. I played the game better than they did. Your father would be... Don't. I cut him off. Don't talk about my father. A guard knocked on the window, signaling 5 minutes left. Detective Santos is offering you a deal, I said, standing. Full cooperation for a reduced sentence. Witness protection after. What about you? Andre asked. What happens to us? I touched my wedding ring. Still there, though I wasn't sure why. There is no us anymore. There's just what you owe. Not to me, to everyone Russell hurt because of people like you. I'll do it, he said quickly. I'll tell them everything. Good. I turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. The money you lost, was it really 300,000? Andre's face fell. 450. Russell lied about the amount because he thought it would be easier to squeeze you for the smaller sum. I nodded, adding this to my mental ledger. Goodbye, Andre. Outside, Poppy waited in her van, surrounded by monitors. How'd it go? He'll talk. I slid into the passenger seat. What's happening at the club? Police are still cataloging evidence, but look what they found. She pulled up a video feed. On screen, officers were removing stacks of cash from behind a false wall. Over $2 million in cash. And that's just the beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Dean. Meeting set for tonight. You sure about this? Are you? Poppy asked, reading over my shoulder. I thought about Andre's confession, about the real amount he'd lost, about all the other people Russell had trapped in his web. Russell's operation wasn't just about poker, I said. The games were just the hook. The real money was in forcing people to launder cash through their businesses, which means there are more clubs, more operations. Russell was middle management, at best. I texted Dean back, yes, I'm sure. Poppy started the van. Detective Santos won't like this. Detective Santos doesn't need to know. I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted messaging app Dean had shown me. Besides, we're not doing anything illegal. Right, Poppy snorted. We're just infiltrating more underground poker clubs to find evidence of money laundering. Totally legal. The poker's legal. The evidence gathering is creative. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number with an address and a time. Below it, 3 words. Bring big money. You don't have to do this, Poppy said softly. Russell's done. Andre's cooperating. You won. I thought about the look in Andre's eyes when he confessed the real amount, about Dean's stories of other victims, about my father's voice in my head. The game's not over until you understand why you're playing. This was never about winning, I replied. It's about making sure nobody else loses everything to people like Russell. Okay. Poppy pulled up a satellite view of the address. But we do this smart. No risks, like last time. I touched my father's ring, feeling its familiar weight. No promises. The sun was setting as we drove across town, painting the sky the color of old playing cards. Somewhere out there, bigger players were running bigger games, ruining more lives. Time to ante up. The new club made Russell's look like a church bingo night. Located in the penthouse of an abandoned office building, it screamed old money and new crimes. Dean met me in the lobby, wearing a server's uniform that probably cost more than his monthly rent. They're all here, he whispered, leading me to the private elevator. Every major player in the region. Names? Better, I got photos. He slipped me a phone. Hidden camera in the service entrance. Poppy should be receiving them now. The elevator opened directly into what looked like a James Bond movie set. Crystal chandeliers, leather furniture, and at least 20 tables of high-stakes games in progress. My hidden camera necklace was already recording everything. Miss Diana, a smooth voice called out. We've been expecting you. The man approaching made Russell look like a small-time hustler, Thomas Price, according to Dean's intel. The real power behind the operation. Your reputation precedes you, he said, taking my hand. The woman who brought down Russell's operation, though I believe that's not your real name. My heart stopped, but my poker face held. I'm afraid you're mistaken. Am I? He smiled, all teeth and threat. Let's discuss it over a game. The high-stakes table just opened up. A trap, obviously, but one I had to walk into. Lead the way. The table's other players were exactly who we'd hoped to find: a corrupt judge, 2 city officials, and a real estate developer known for mysterious building fires, all part of the money laundering network we'd uncovered in Russell's files. $1 million minimum, Price announced, sitting down. Cash only. I opened my briefcase, filled with marked bills, courtesy of Detective Santos, though Price didn't need to know that. Deal me in. 3 hours later, my stack had doubled. I'd played cautiously, letting others take the big risks, while I gathered intel through seemingly casual conversation. The hidden microphone caught everything. Impressive discipline, Price commented during a break. You remind me of someone, a player from years ago. Sylvester, I believe. Common name, I replied, but my hand tightened on my cards. Indeed. Though his daughter might disagree. Before I could respond, Dean appeared at my shoulder. Sir, there's a situation in the kitchen. Excuse me, Price stood. Don't go anywhere, Diana. Or should I say, Yolanda. As soon as he left, Dean whispered, You've got to get out. Now, they found the transmitter in my uniform. The evidence is already uploaded, Poppy confirmed, but they're calling in muscle. Lots of it. I looked at my chips. Nearly 2 million in winnings. No time to cash out. Create a distraction, I told Dean. Something big. He nodded and disappeared. 30 seconds later, the fire alarm blared. Sprinklers activated, sending the well-dressed crowd into chaos. I slipped away from the table, heading for the service elevator. A hand grabbed my arm. Leaving so soon? Price's voice was ice cold. We haven't finished our game. Actually, we have. I nodded toward the windows, where police lights were already flashing. Check your phone. He pulled it out, face darkening as he read. Every major news outlet was running the story. Live footage from my necklace camera, financial records, everything. You've made a serious mistake, he growled, grip tightening. The mistake was threatening my father years ago, I replied. Yeah, I know about that too. Found his old journals. You tried to force him into your operation. He refused. And died a nobody. He died clean, which is more than you'll be able to say. The elevator dinged. Armed officers poured out, led by Detective Santos. Thomas Price, she announced. You're under arrest. Price shoved me hard, making a break for the fire escape. He might have made it if Dean hadn't chosen that moment to emerge from the kitchen, armed with a serving tray. One well-timed swing, and Price went down hard. Nice hit, I said, helping Dean up. Baseball scholarship, he grinned. Finally came in handy. Outside, Poppy was waiting in her van, surrounded by news vans and police cars. Got everything, she confirmed, including Price's confession about your dad. I watched as Price was led out in handcuffs, followed by the judge and city officials. The real estate developer had apparently tried to escape through the kitchen and ended up face first in a pot of soup. You okay? Detective Santos asked, joining us. I touched my father's ring, thinking about his journals, about the pressure Price had put on him, about the integrity that had probably cost him his life. Yeah, I said, but it's not over. There are always more games, she agreed. No, I pulled out my father's deck. There are always more players who need to be stopped. The cards felt warm in my hands, like they were ready for whatever came next. So was I. The courthouse buzzed with tension. I sat in the front row, watching Price and Russell share the defense table, while Andre testified against them. My soon-to-be ex-husband looked small in his orange jumpsuit, but his voice carried clearly as he detailed years of extortion and violence. And what happened when businesses couldn't pay? The prosecutor asked. They'd start with threats, Andre said. Then accidents, fires, break-ins. Sometimes people disappeared. Price's lawyer stood. Objection, speculation. Overruled, the judge replied. Continue, Mr. Burton. A commotion erupted at the courtroom doors. 3 men in suits burst in, making a beeline for Andre. Detective Santos moved first, tackling one while courthouse security grabbed another. The third reached into his jacket. "Gun!" someone shouted. I reacted without thinking, grabbing the heavy law book from the bench in front of me and hurling it. It caught the gunman in the face just as Poppy, sitting behind him, swept his legs. He went down hard, weapon skittering across the floor. "Order!" The judge's gavel crashed down. "Clear the courtroom." As security dragged the would-be assassins away, I caught Price smirking. He thought this was a victory, showing what happened to people who testified against him, even if the attempt failed. "Court will resume tomorrow," the judge announced. "Mr. Burton will be placed in protective custody." Outside, Detective Santos pulled me aside. "That wasn't random. Someone leaked the testimony schedule." "I know," I said. "And I know who." I showed her my phone, a series of texts Poppy had intercepted between Price's lawyer and someone called the director. "There's another level," I explained. "Someone above Price, someone with enough power to infiltrate the courthouse." "You need to let us handle this," Santos warned. "You've done enough." "Have I?" I nodded toward the TV in the courthouse lobby, where news crews were reporting on the assassination attempt. "They're still hurting people, still running games, just more carefully now." "Yolanda." "I found something in my father's journals." I cut her off. "Notes about a private club in the mountains, ultra exclusive. He wrote that the real power players, the ones who controlled everything, they only played there." "The Summit Club," Dean said, joining us. "I heard whispers about it when I worked for Russell. Once a year, the biggest game in the country. Invitation only." "And?" Santos asked. "And this year's game is next week." I pulled out an envelope. Price's lawyer had this in his briefcase. Poppy copied it before the trial. Inside was an ornate invitation and a key card. "Absolutely not," Santos said. "This is way too dangerous." "More dangerous than letting them continue," I challenged. "They tried to kill Andre in open court. What happens to the next person who stands up to them?" "She's right," Poppy chimed in, laptop open. "I've been tracking their pattern. Every time we shut down one operation, 2 more pop up, like a hydra." "Then you cut off the head," Dean said quietly. We all looked at him. "The Summit Club," he continued. "It's not just about poker. It's where they make the real decisions. Territory, operations, who lives, who dies. And now we have a way in," I added. Santos ran a hand through her hair. "Even if I wanted to help, I couldn't authorize an operation based on a stolen invitation. The evidence would be inadmissible." "Who said anything about evidence?" I smiled. "We're just going to play poker." "With what money?" Santos demanded. "These games run in the millions." "Actually," Poppy turned her laptop around. "Remember Price's private accounts? The ones we found during the raid? They're still active, and I know how to access them." "That's illegal," Santos pointed out, "using a criminal's own money to bring down his organization." I shrugged. "Sounds like karma, to me." A court officer approached. "Detective, they need you for the incident report." Santos gave me a hard look. "We'll discuss this later." After she left, Dean leaned in. "You're really going to do this?" "No," I corrected. "We're going to do this. One last game. The biggest one yet," Poppy added. I touched my father's ring, remembering his last entry in the journal. "Sometimes the hardest part isn't playing the cards you're dealt. It's knowing when to deal a new hand entirely." "The Summit Club is in 3 days," I said. "Poppy, I need everything. Blueprints, security details, player profiles." "Dean, you're my inside man again. And I need to make a call." "To who?" Dean asked. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized from my father's journal. It rang twice. "Hello?" a gruff voice answered. "Jack, this is Sylvester's daughter. I need to ask you about dealing at the Summit Club." There was a long pause. "I wondered when you'd call. Your father said you would, someday." I looked at my friends, at the courtroom where Andre had finally found his courage, at the future we were about to reshape. "Let's talk," I said. The Summit Club lived up to its name. A glass and steel fortress perched on a mountain peak. accessible only by private road. Jack, my father's old friend, met us at the service entrance. Your father would be proud, he said, adjusting my dealer's bow tie, and terrified. That's what everyone keeps saying. I checked my reflection. The uniform fit perfectly, making me look like just another high-end casino employee. Remember, Jack said, these people aren't just rich, they're dangerous. One wrong move. I know. I touched my father's ring, now serving as my only good luck charm. Is everything set? He nodded. You're dealing the main event, just like we practiced. In my ear, Poppy's voice crackled. Security systems are looped. Dean's in position at the bar. Detective Santos has units standing by. I took a deep breath and entered the main floor. The Summit Club made Price's operation look like a kid's poker night. Billion-dollar deals were being made at the bar. International criminals mingled with corrupt politicians. And at the center of it all, the high-stakes table where I'd be dealing. Ladies and gentlemen, Jack announced to the gathered players, our main event begins in 5 minutes, 10 million minimum buy-in. I took my position, shuffling cards with the precision my father had drilled into me since childhood. One by one, the players arrived. A tech billionaire, a drug kingpin, a senator, and finally, him, the director. The man whose name appeared in every encrypted message, every secret document we'd uncovered. The game is no limit Texas Hold'em, I announced, keeping my voice steady. Good luck. The first few hands went smoothly. I dealt with mechanical precision, watching as millions changed hands. Through my earpiece, I could hear Poppy recording everything, Dean collecting conversations at the bar. Then the director won a massive pot with a bluff. Impressive, the tech billionaire said. Almost as impressive as your handling of the Price situation. Price got sloppy, the director replied, letting that dealer's daughter dismantle his operation. Amateur hour. My hands didn't falter as I dealt the next hand, but my heart raced. Speaking of Price, the senator leaned in. What's the status of our witness problem? Being handled, the director smiled. By now, Mr. Burton should be experiencing an unfortunate accident in protective custody. The cards slipped from my hands, scattering across the table. I'm so sorry, I said, reaching to gather them. But the director caught my wrist. You know, he said quietly, you have your father's tells. Everything happened at once. The director reached inside his jacket. Dean shouted a warning from the bar, and I made my play. Now, I yelled. The lights cut out. In the darkness, I flipped the table, sending chips and cards flying. Shouts and chaos erupted as federal agents stormed in from every entrance. Federal agents! Detective Santos's voice boomed. Everyone on the ground. The director tried to run, but found Jack blocking his path. One solid punch from my father's old friend, and the director went down. When the lights came back on, the scene was almost beautiful. Dozens of the world's most untouchable criminals, face down on custom carpets, while agents cuffed them. You okay? Dean asked, helping me up. Andre? I had to know. Safe. Poppy confirmed through the earpiece. The attempt failed. Santos's team intercepted them. The director glared at me as agents led him away. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I do. I pulled out my father's deck of cards. I finished what my father started. He knew about this place, about all of you. He kept records, built evidence, waited for the right moment. And what? The director laughed. You're his revenge. No, I dealt one final hand. 4 aces, face up. I'm his justice. Outside, sunrise painted the mountain gold. Detective Santos handed me a coffee as we watched the parade of arrests, the evidence Poppy gathered, plus the recorded conversations. She shook her head. This will take down operations in 12 countries. Good. I shuffled my father's cards one last time, then handed them to her. Evidence locker, along with his journals. What will you do now? I looked at Dean and Poppy, who were already arguing about their next project. Thought about the message Andre had sent through his lawyer. Thank you for showing me what real courage looks like. I think, I said, I'll deal a new hand. Santos smiled. Your father really would be proud. I know. I touched his ring one last time, then turned toward the sunrise. But more importantly, I am. Behind us, the Summit Club stood empty, its tables silent, its secrets exposed to the dawn. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't winning the game, it's changing the rules entirely.
The bank statement trembled in my hands as I stared at the unfamiliar account number. 6 figures, quietly tucked away in some offshore haven I'd never heard of. My husband's name was right there in black and white, along with a transaction history that made my stomach turn. I'm Esme, and this is how I discovered my husband and sister had been planning to destroy my life. Jorge? I called out, my voice echoing through our empty house. The silence that greeted me was deafening. His closet stood open, half empty, like a wound in our bedroom wall. My hands shook as I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail. The front door clicked open. For a moment, my heart leaped, but it was just Ella, my best friend, letting herself in with the spare key. Esme, you sounded weird on the phone. What's wrong? I couldn't speak. I just handed her the statement. Holy shit, she whispered, scanning the document. When did you find this? 20 minutes ago. Jorge's gone and... My voice cracked. Sloane isn't answering her phone either. Ella's eyes widened. Your sister? No way. I pulled up my phone and showed her the text I'd received from my mother an hour ago. Honey, is everything okay? Sloane just called to say she's taking an unexpected trip abroad. She seemed strange. I should have seen it coming, I said, pacing the room. The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls, how they'd both go quiet when I entered the room. God, I'm such an idiot. Stop that right now. Ella grabbed my shoulders. You're not an idiot. You're an auditor, for Christ's sake. One of the best in the city. That's when it hit me. I walked to Jorge's home office, Ella following close behind. The laptop was gone, but he'd left his external hard drive. Typical Jorge, always careless with the details. What are you doing? Ella asked as I booted up my computer. Using my skills, I replied, plugging in the drive. Jorge never was good at covering his tracks. He probably thought deleting his browser history would be enough. 15 minutes of digging revealed everything. Emails, flight confirmations, property inquiries in the Cayman Islands, and photos. So many photos of them together, dating back months. That son of a bitch, Ella breathed, looking over my shoulder. And your own sister. My phone buzzed. A text from Jorge. I'm sorry. By the time you read this, we'll be gone. The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow. Please don't try to find us. The rage that filled me was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It wasn't hot. It was ice cold and clarifying. Ella, I said, my voice steady for the first time that morning. I need you to be honest with me. Do you still have those contacts at the bank from when you worked there? She nodded slowly. Why? Because I'm not going to try to find them. I turned to face her, a plan already forming in my mind. I'm going to destroy them. Legally, methodically, and completely. Esme. Ella's voice held a note of concern. They think they're so clever, I continued, pulling up Jorge's investment portfolio. But they forgot what I do for a living. I find people's mistakes for a career. And Jorge? I pointed to a series of suspicious transactions. He's made plenty. What are you going to do? I stood up, grabbing my phone. First, I'm calling Ramon. He's still a practicing lawyer, right? Yeah, but... Good. Then I'm calling Stefan. He taught me everything I know about forensic accounting, and he owes me a favor. I felt eerily calm now, focused. They took everything from me, Ella. My marriage, my sister, my savings. But they forgot one thing. What's that? They forgot who I am. I pulled up Ramon's number. And by the time I'm done, they'll never forget again. Ella was quiet for a moment, then a slow smile spread across her face. Need a partner in crime? The legal kind, of course. Always. I pressed dial, listening to it ring. They wanted to play games? Fine, let's play. You need to see this, Ella said, barging into my home office 3 days later. She thrust her phone in my face, nearly knocking over my coffee. Instagram public account, posted 2 hours ago. There they were, my husband and sister, lounging by an infinity pool at some luxury resort. Jorge's arm draped around Sloane's shoulders, both of them grinning like teenagers. The caption read, "Starting our new life together. Vas blessed." "They're in Barbados," Ella continued, scrolling through more photos. "The Royal Westmore Resort. Jorge always did have expensive taste." "On my dime," I muttered, saving the photos to my evidence folder. "Ramon's going to love this." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Ramon's familiar voice filled the room on speaker. "Esme, I've got something. You free to meet?" 30 minutes later, we sat in Ramon's downtown office, surrounded by law books and the smell of expensive coffee. "So," Ramon began, spreading documents across his desk. "Remember those suspicious transactions you flagged? They're connected to a shell company Jorge set up 3 months ago. He's been funneling money through it, probably thinking he's clever. But," I leaned forward, "but he made a rookie mistake. The company's registered in Delaware, but he's been operating it from your home address. That's a clear violation of corporate registration laws." Ella, who'd insisted on coming along, spoke up. "What does that mean for us?" "It means," Ramon smiled, "we can freeze those assets pending investigation. He won't be able to touch that money until this is sorted out." I felt a flutter of satisfaction. "How long will that take? With the evidence you've gathered, could be months, maybe longer." Ramon's eyes twinkled. "Plenty of time for the rest of your plan." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Stefan, my old mentor. "Perfect timing," I said, answering. "You're on speaker." "Esme, darling." Stefan's gravelly voice filled the room. "I did some digging into that investment venture Jorge was planning. It's worse than we thought." "How so?" "It's a classic Ponzi scheme. The whole operation's being investigated by the SEC. Jorge probably doesn't know yet, but when it breaks..." Stefan chuckled. "Well, let's just say his new paradise might not last long." "Should we warn him?" Ella asked. I shook my head. "He made his bed." "There's more," Stefan continued. "I found something interesting in the property records. That house they're planning to buy? Jorge put down a deposit using funds from your joint account before he left." Ramon straightened in his chair. "That's perfect. We can use that to establish intent to defraud. Esme, with your permission, I can file an emergency injunction today." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Hit them where it hurts." After the meeting, Ella and I walked to a nearby cafe. She'd been unusually quiet. "You okay?" I asked as we sat down with our drinks. "Just processing. It's like watching a masterclass in revenge." She stirred her latte. "But are you sure you want to go through with all of this? It seems intense." I pulled out my phone and showed her another Instagram post from Sloane. This one showed them shopping, designer bags in hand. "They're spending my money, Ella. Money I worked 60-hour weeks to earn. While they're living it up in paradise, I'm sleeping in an empty house with a broken heart." "Fair point. Besides," I continued, "this isn't just about revenge, it's about justice. And maybe..." I paused, considering my words carefully. "Maybe it's about making sure they never do this to anyone else." My phone lit up with a text from Ramon. "Injunction filed. They'll be served within 24 hours. Prepare for fallout." I showed Ella the message, and a slow smile spread across her face. "Well then, I guess paradise is about to get a little less peaceful." "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, finishing my coffee. "Jorge always said I was too focused on my career, too detail-oriented. Called me boring once. And now those same skills are going to be his undoing." Ella finished. "Exactly." I stood up, gathering my things. "Come on, we need to meet Stefan. He said he found something about an estate loophole we need to discuss." As we left the cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time since finding that bank statement, I was smiling. It wasn't a happy smile exactly, but it was the smile of someone who had finally found their power again. And I was just getting started. Stefan's office hadn't changed in the decade since I'd worked under him. Same worn leather chairs, same wall of financial texts, same smell of Earl Grey tea. "The investment scheme is worse than we thought," Stefan said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Jorge's planning to sink your savings into a development project in Costa Rica. On paper, it looks legitimate. In reality..." He tapped the documents with his finger. I flipped through the pages, my auditor's brain immediately spotting the red flags. "These profit projections are impossible." "Exactly." Stefan leaned back. "The whole thing's a house of cards. The developer's been under investigation for months. Jorge's about to lose everything he stole from you, and he doesn't even know it. Unless someone warns the authorities first. Ella chimed in from her corner chair. Stefan's eyes met mine. My thoughts exactly. An anonymous tip from a concerned financial professional could speed things along. My phone buzzed. A text from Ramon. Injunction served. Check your email. I pulled up my inbox to find a video attachment. The security camera footage from the Royal Westmore Resort showed Jorge being handed the legal documents poolside. His face turned from confusion to rage in seconds. Sloane, sitting beside him, jumped up and started gesturing wildly. "Oh, this is better than Netflix," Ella said, watching over my shoulder. "That's just the appetizer," Stefan said, pulling out another folder. "Remember that estate planning we did last year? The one Jorge insisted on?" Of course, he was obsessed with protecting our assets. Well, Stefan smiled. He made a crucial mistake. The trust he set up? He never filed the final paperwork to remove your access. You're still listed as primary trustee. I sat up straighter. What does that mean? It means you can legally challenge any major financial decisions he makes using trust assets, including, Stefan paused for effect, that luxury condo they just put a deposit on. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Jorge. "What the hell are you doing? Call off your lawyers, or you'll regret it." "Empty threats," Ramon said when I called him. "He's panicking. The development company just got served with a federal warrant, and your anonymous tip about Jorge's involvement is being investigated. How long until it all falls apart? Days, maybe hours. The SEC doesn't mess around with these cases." That evening, Ella and I sat on my patio, watching the sunset and sipping wine. My laptop was open, showing Jorge and Sloane's increasingly frantic social media posts. "Look at this one," Ella pointed. "Sometimes people try to destroy you, but karma knows the truth. The irony is incredible." "They still think they're the victims," I said, closing the laptop, "even now." Speaking of karma, Ella hesitated. Stefan mentioned something about Sloane's old trust fund, the one from your grandparents. What about it? Apparently, there's a morality clause. If any beneficiary is found to be involved in fraudulent activities, I nearly choked on my wine. Are you serious? Stefan's looking into it, but if it's true and if Jorge's investment scheme is proven fraudulent, Sloane loses everything. Not just what they stole from me, but her inheritance too. The thought should have made me sad. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful. My phone lit up with a notification. The SEC had issued their preliminary findings on the Costa Rica development scheme. Jorge's name was prominently featured. "Turn on the news," I texted Ramon. Minutes later, the story broke across financial networks. Major investment fraud uncovered, dozens of investors at risk. Jorge's company was listed among the primary participants. Ella refreshed Instagram. Jorge and Sloane's accounts had both gone dark. "What now?" she asked. "Now we wait," I said, pouring more wine. The dominoes are falling exactly where they should. My phone buzzed one final time that evening. A message from Sloane. "Sis, please, we need to talk. Things aren't what they seem." I showed the message to Ella, who snorted. The nerve of her. "You know what's funny?" I said, deleting the message without responding. "They thought they were so clever, running off to paradise with my money. But they forgot the most important thing about paradise." "What's that?" "Paradise is expensive. And now?" I smiled, watching the last rays of sun disappear. Now they can't afford it. The next morning, Stefan called with news that made everything even sweeter. "The morality clause is valid," he said. "And Sloane's trust fund? It's already been frozen pending investigation." I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd found that bank statement just days ago. She was stronger, sharper, and she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. "You're not going to believe what I found," Ramon announced, striding into my office without knocking. His tie was loose, and he clutched a stack of papers like they were made of gold. "The estate loophole?" I asked, clearing space on my desk. "Better." He spread out the documents. "Sloane's been playing both sides. Look at these transfer records." I scanned the papers, my jaw dropping. Hidden accounts, secret transfers, all in Sloane's name alone. She'd been siphoning money from Jorge even as they planned their escape together. "Your sister's been busy," Ramon said. "She's got accounts Jorge doesn't know about. She's been skimming from the money he stole from you." Ella, who'd been typing at her laptop, let out a low whistle. A thief stealing from a thief. That's almost poetic. It gets better, Ramon continued. Remember that property they bought in Barbados? Sloan put her name on the deed, not his. Jorge has no legal claim to it. I sat back, processing this information. Does he know? Not yet, but he will. Ramon's grin was wolfish. The property records are public. Anyone could find them. Anyone like an anonymous tip to Jorge's lawyer? Ella suggested. Exactly. I pulled up my email. Send everything you've got, Ramon. I want to do this right. While Ramon compiled the documents, my phone buzzed with a notification. Another Instagram post from Sloan, this one showing her alone at a beachfront restaurant. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to look out for yourself. Your self-care, you're blessed." Look at the background, Ella said, pointing at my screen. That's not the Royal Westmore. She's moved to a different hotel. I checked the location tag. The Azure Bay Resort. That's on the other side of the island from where Jorge's staying. They're already splitting up? Ella asked. No, I smiled. They're just not as united as they thought they were, and it's about to get worse. Ramon finished organizing the files. Done. Want me to send the anonymous tip? Not yet. I pulled up property records on my computer. First, let's make sure the estate loophole is properly exploited. Stefan said I'm still primary trustee, right? Right, which means I can challenge any property purchases made with trust assets. I started typing, including that luxury condo they put a deposit on. 2 hours later, everything was in place. The property challenge was filed, the trust assets were frozen, and Ramon's anonymous tip about Sloan's secret accounts was ready to go. Send it, I told Ramon. He hit send, then looked at his watch. Given the time difference, Jorge's lawyer should see this in about an hour. Perfect timing, Ella said, showing me her phone. Look who just posted. Jorge's latest Instagram story showed him at a business meeting, trying to salvage what he could of his investments. The caption, "Building our future, one deal at a time. Entrepreneur life." Should we tell him there won't be any deals? Ella asked. No need, I replied. His lawyer will do that for us. My phone rang. It was Stefan. The trust freeze just went through, he said without preamble. All assets are locked pending review, including that condo deposit. How long will the review take? With the evidence we've submitted, months at least. Maybe longer if we find more irregularities. He paused. Which, knowing Jorge's financial habits, we probably will. Just then, Ella gasped. Esme, look at this. She turned her laptop around. On the screen was an email from one of her banking contacts. Sloan had just tried to transfer a large sum from one of her secret accounts, and the transfer had been denied. The freeze is working, Ramon said, reading over my shoulder. She can't access any of it. My phone buzzed again. A text from Sloan. What have you done? This isn't fair. Before I could respond, another message came through, this time from Jorge. My lawyer just called. What the hell is going on with Sloan? I showed the messages to Ella and Ramon, and now they turn on each other. You're not going to respond? Ella asked. No need. I closed my laptop. They'll do all the work for us. Ramon gathered his papers. Want me to keep monitoring the situation? Please. And Ramon? I called as he reached the door. Thank you for everything. He nodded. Justice isn't always swift, but it is sweet. After he left, Ella and I sat in silence for a moment. Finally, she spoke. You okay? You know what? I said, surprising myself with the truth in my words. I really am. For the first time since this all started, I feel like I'm winning. You're not just winning, Ella corrected. You're demolishing them. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Jorge. We need to talk. Please. I deleted it without responding. The time for talking was long past. Now was the time for consequences. The foreclosure notices just went out, Ramon announced, his voice crackling through my speakerphone. Both properties. They should receive them by tomorrow morning. I sat at my kitchen table, watching the sunrise with my morning coffee. How long until they have to vacate? 30 days. And that's being generous, considering the circumstances. Ella walked in, already dressed for work, and mouthed, Is that Ramon? I nodded. Any movement on their accounts? I asked. Frozen solid. Sloan tried to access her trust fund again yesterday. Got denied. Jorge's been calling his investment partners non-stop, but nobody's taking his calls anymore. Not since the SEC investigation made the news. My phone buzzed with a text notification. Ella picked it up and burst out laughing. Oh, you have to see this. Sloane's posting about toxic people and negative energy on Instagram. From the Azure Bay Resort? I asked. Not anymore. The geotag shows she's at some budget hotel now. Guess paradise got too expensive. Ramon cleared his throat. There's something else. A letter arrived at my office this morning, from Jorge. He wants me to give it to you. My stomach tightened. What does it say? Haven't opened it. It's addressed to you personally. Want me to bring it over? I looked at Ella, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, but come during lunch. I want both of you here when I read it. The morning crawled by. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to the letter. What could Jorge possibly have to say now? At noon, Ramon arrived with a cream-colored envelope in hand. It's heavy, he said, placing it on my kitchen counter. Open it, Ella urged, perching on a bar stool. I took a deep breath and tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, several pages long. Dear Esme, I read aloud. By now you must know everything has fallen apart. The investments, the properties, all of it. I made a terrible mistake. Damn right you did, Ella muttered. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way, I continued reading. But Sloane, she's not who I thought she was. She's been lying to me, stealing from me. I should have known better. You were always the honest one, the reliable one. Ramon snorted. Now he remembers that? I know I have no right to ask anything of you, the letter went on, but please, can we meet? Just once? I need to explain everything. I've made such a mess of things, and I think you're the only one who can help me fix it. Fix it? Ella practically shouted. Is he serious? I folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. He's desperate. The money's gone, Sloane's betrayed him, and his reputation is ruined. Are you going to meet him? Ramon asked carefully. Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a news alert. The SEC had expanded their investigation into Jorge's investment scheme. The headline included words like widespread fraud and potential criminal charges. Yes, I said finally. I'll meet him. What? Ella and Ramon exclaimed simultaneously. In a public place with both of you nearby. I held up my hand to stop their protests. Think about it. He's cornered, desperate. That makes him vulnerable. And vulnerable people tend to reveal things they shouldn't. Ramon's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to get him to incriminate himself? Exactly. Every word he says can be used against him later. I picked up my phone. Besides, I want to see his face when he realizes just how completely he's lost everything. You're scary sometimes, Ella said admiringly. You know that? I learned from the best. I smiled at Ramon. Can you set up the meeting? Somewhere public, lots of witnesses? Leave it to me. He pulled out his phone. And Esme? Be careful. Desperate people can be dangerous. I know. I walked to my window, looking out at the city below. But so can I. Just then, another news alert popped up on my phone. The Azure Bay Resort was evicting Sloane for unpaid bills. The attached photo showed her arguing with hotel security in the lobby. Karma really is something, Ella mused, reading over my shoulder. It's not karma, I corrected her. It's consequences, and they're just beginning. I typed a quick response to Jorge's letter, agreeing to meet him in 2 days at a busy downtown cafe. As I hit send, I felt strangely calm. The pieces were all falling into place, exactly as planned. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Sloane. Whatever Jorge tells you is a lie. I can explain everything. I deleted it without responding. Let them fight among themselves. Their desperation would only make what came next easier. The reckoning was about to begin. The cafe buzzed with lunchtime activity as I sat waiting, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold in front of me. Ella was positioned at a table across the room, pretending to work on her laptop. Ramon waited outside in his car, ready if needed. Jorge walked in exactly at noon, looking nothing like the confident man who'd left me weeks ago. His designer clothes had been replaced by wrinkled khakis and an untucked shirt. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Esme, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Thank you for meeting me. You have 15 minutes, I replied, checking my watch. Make them count. He ran his hands through his unkempt hair. Everything's falling apart. The investments, the properties. Sloane's been stealing from me. Can you believe that? Actually, I can. I took a sip of my cold coffee. It must be awful being betrayed by someone you trusted, He missed the irony completely. I've lost everything. The SEC is breathing down my neck. The banks have frozen all my accounts. He leaned forward. But you can help me. You understand finance better than anyone I know. Like I understood it when I warned you about those risky investments months ago? He flinched. I should have listened to you then. I see that now. No, I corrected him. You should have not stolen my money and run off with my sister. That was a mistake, he said quickly. I wasn't thinking clearly. Sloane, she manipulated me. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, voice recorder running. Really? Tell me more about how my sister manipulated you into emptying our joint accounts. He didn't notice the trap. She said we could triple the money in 6 months. She had all these connections, these plans. But she was lying, Esme. She took half of what I took from you and hid it in separate accounts. That must have been shocking to discover. It was. And now she's threatening to go to the SEC herself if I don't give her more money. He laughed bitterly. Money I don't even have anymore. I leaned back, letting him talk himself deeper into trouble. Across the room, I saw Ella typing furiously, documenting every word. The thing is, Jorge continued, if you could just help me access some of the frozen assets, I could fix everything. Pay everyone back, make it right. Like you were going to make it right when you left me that divorce notice? He had the decency to look ashamed. I was wrong about everything. You were always the smart one, the stable one. I see that now. Interesting. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Is that why you tried to hide these offshore accounts from the divorce proceedings? His face went pale. Where did you get those? I'm an auditor, Jorge. Finding hidden money is what I do. I stood up. And by the way, the SEC will be very interested in these records. Wait, he grabbed my arm. Please don't do this. I'll give you anything you want. I pulled free from his grip. You already took everything I had. But here's the funny thing. You gave me something in return. What's that? Clarity. I gathered my things. Oh, and one more thing. You might want to ask Sloane about the photos she's been sending to the FBI's fraud division. Turns out she's been building her own insurance policy against you for months. The color drained from his face. What photos? The ones showing you meeting with known fraudsters. The ones with dates and times that match perfectly with your suspicious wire transfers. I smiled. My sister may be many things, but she's not stupid. She's been playing you from the start. You're lying, he whispered, but his eyes showed doubt. Check your phone, I said, walking away. I'm sure the FBI will be in touch soon. As I reached the door, I turned back one last time. 15 minutes are up, by the way. Goodbye, Jorge. Outside, Ramon was waiting with his car door open. How did it go? Better than expected. I handed him my phone. Got everything on record. He admitted to the theft, the fraud, everything. And the FBI photos? Ella asked, joining us. Was that true about Sloane? No, I smiled. But it will be by tonight. Ramon, can you send those surveillance photos we've been holding on to the FBI's tip line? With pleasure. As we drove away, I saw Jorge through the cafe window, frantically typing on his phone. By now, he'd be discovering that Sloane had blocked his number. You know what the best part is? I said to Ella. He still thinks he's the victim in all this. Not for long, she replied. Not after the FBI gets those photos. My phone buzzed with a text from Sloane. We need to talk. Now. I showed it to Ella, who grinned. Ready for round 2? More than ready, I replied. It's time to end this. Sloane looked nothing like the polished Instagram photos when she showed up at my door unannounced. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her makeup smudged, and her usual confidence replaced by desperate energy. You have to help me, she blurted out before I could speak. The FBI is asking questions, my accounts are frozen, and the hotel just kicked me out. That sounds like a personal problem, I replied, not inviting her in. I'm your sister. She tried to push past me, but I held my ground. Were you my sister when you ran off with my husband? She deflated slightly. That's complicated. Look, can I just come in, please? I can explain everything. I stepped aside, letting her enter. Ella sat at my kitchen counter, arms crossed, while Ramon stood by the window recording everything on his phone. Oh, Sloane faltered. I didn't realize you had company. They're here for my protection, I said coldly. You have 5 minutes. Protection? From me? I'm your little sister. She dropped her designer bag on the floor. Jorge manipulated me. He said he loved me, that you didn't understand him. Save it. I cut her off. I saw the bank records. You were stealing from him while he was stealing from me. Her face changed, calculation replacing desperation. Okay, fine. Yes, I took some money, but he deserved it. He was planning to dump me anyway, once he got everything set up offshore. And that justifies betraying your own sister? You always had everything, she exploded. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect life. You don't know what it's like living in your shadow. Shadow? I laughed incredulously. You were mom and dad's favorite. They paid for your college, your car, your apartment. I worked for everything I have. Had, she corrected with a sneer. Everything you had. The room went silent. Even Ella inhaled sharply. You're right, I said quietly. Everything I had. But here's what you don't understand, Sloan. While you were busy taking my things, I was busy building a trap. What are you talking about? I nodded to Ramon, who pulled out his tablet. Show her. He turned the screen towards Sloan. On it were dozens of photos. Her secret meetings with Jorge, the offshore bank visits, the cash transfers, all meticulously documented with dates and times. How did you... she started. I'm an auditor, I reminded her. Finding evidence is what I do, and you two left quite a trail. Those photos mean nothing, she said, but her voice wavered. The FBI disagrees. They're especially interested in the ones showing you and Jorge meeting with known financial criminals. I stepped closer. By the way, how's that trust fund looking? Her face went pale. You wouldn't dare. The morality clause has already been triggered. The trustees are meeting next week to discuss your permanent removal as a beneficiary. You can't do this to me. She grabbed my arm. I'm family. I pulled free. Family doesn't steal from family, and now you get to learn what it really means to have nothing. I'll tell everyone what you did, she threatened. How you set us up, trapped us. Go ahead, Ramon spoke up. Tell them how you and Jorge committed federal crimes, and Esme simply gathered evidence. I'm sure the FBI would love to hear your version. Sloane's shoulders slumped. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Your 5 minutes are up, I said, opening the front door. Goodbye, Sloane. Please, she whispered. I have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before you destroyed my life. I gestured to the door. I hear the downtown hostel has weekly rates. She picked up her bag, tears streaming down her face. You've changed, she said accusingly. No, I corrected her. I just stopped being your victim. After she left, Ella let out a long breath. That was intense. Send the recording to the FBI, I told Ramon, along with those photos we've been holding back. Already done, he replied, typing on his phone. They're particularly interested in the offshore account numbers she just inadvertently confirmed. My phone buzzed. A text from Jorge. What did you tell Sloane? She's hysterical. I deleted it without responding and turned to my friends. Thank you both. For everything. Are you okay? Ella asked softly. I walked to my window, watching Sloane's expensive car, bought with my money, pull away from the curb. You know what? I really am. I turned back to them. For the first time since this all started, I feel free. Free, Ella repeated. I like that. My phone buzzed one final time. A notification from the FBI. They wanted to schedule a formal interview about Jorge and Sloane's financial activities. I smiled. The endgame was finally here. The morning sun streamed through my office window as I finished typing the last blog post of my story. The cursor blinked at me, waiting for the final words. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Financial fraud ring. Busted. Multiple arrests made. The accompanying photo showed Jorge being led away in handcuffs, his designer suit replaced by a rumpled dress shirt. Did you see the news? Ella burst into my office, waving her phone. They got him, and guess who turned state's evidence? Sloane, I said, already knowing. She always was good at saving herself. The FBI agent called. Ramon added, walking in behind her. Said your evidence was instrumental in breaking the case. They found connections to 3 other fraud schemes. I minimized the news article and returned to my blog post. The cursor still blinked, waiting. What are you writing? Ella peered over my shoulder. My story, all of it, from the moment I found that bank statement to now. I gestured to the screen. I'm just trying to find the right ending. Why share it? Ramon asked, genuinely curious. Because somewhere out there, someone else is going through what I did, feeling helpless, betrayed, lost. I turned to face them. They need to know they can fight back, legally, methodically, effectively. Speaking of fighting back, Ella grinned, pulling up another news article. Look who's trending. The headline read, Socialite Sisters Fall from Grace, Trust Fund Revoked. Below was a picture of Sloane leaving a budget motel, trying to hide her face from photographers. The trustees made it official this morning, Ramon confirmed. The morality clause was ironclad. She's cut off completely. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Just saw the news. We need to talk about your sister. Not today, I muttered, declining the call. You'll have to deal with them eventually, Ella said gently. I know, but right now I need to finish this. I turned back to my computer and began typing. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about justice, about standing up for yourself when the people closest to you try to tear you down, about using your skills and knowledge to right wrongs instead of letting them destroy you. My husband and sister thought they could take everything from me, my money, my dignity, my trust in others. But they forgot something crucial. They forgot who I am, an auditor, a professional, someone who knows that every transaction leaves a trail. Every lie creates a pattern, and every betrayal contains the seeds of its own destruction. To those reading this who've been betrayed, you're not powerless, you're not alone, and you're certainly not finished. Use your skills, trust your instincts, build your evidence. Justice may not come quickly, but it does come. As for me, I'm not the same person who found that bank statement all those weeks ago. I'm stronger, wiser, and finally completely free. I hit publish and sat back. Perfect, Ella whispered, squeezing my shoulder. Ramon's phone buzzed. The FBI wants to know if you'll consult on similar cases. Apparently your methods impressed them. I smiled. Tell them I'll think about it. What now? Ella asked. Now? I stood up and gathered my things. Now we celebrate. I'm thinking champagne on my patio. The one Jorge always complained was too small? Ella laughed. The very one. And afterward, I'm redecorating the whole house. My way this time. As we headed out, my phone buzzed one last time. A comment on my blog post. Thank you. I thought I was alone. You gave me hope. See? Ella pointed at the comment, already making a difference. Outside, the city stretched before us, bright and full of possibilities. My house keys jingled in my hand, the keys to a home that was truly mine now, free from lies and betrayal. You know what the best revenge is? I said as we walked to my car. What's that? Ramon asked. Living well and helping others do the same. We drove away, leaving behind the old story of betrayal and beginning a new one of strength, justice, and redemption. Not just for me, but for anyone else who needed to find their way back to themselves. The sun was setting as we raised our glasses on my too small patio, which suddenly felt exactly right. To justice, Ramon proposed. To friendship, Ella added. I lifted my glass, watching the light catch the bubbles. To new beginnings, and somewhere in the city, my blog post continued to spread, carrying a message of hope to others who needed it most. You can fight back. You can win. You can rebuild. You just have to know how to play the long game.
The morning I lost everything started like any other. I was reviewing quarterly projections in my corner office when Rory walked in without knocking. His face set in that practiced, neutral expression I'd come to recognize from difficult client meetings. We need to talk, Heidi. I smiled, not yet understanding. Can it wait? I'm finalizing the numbers for the Sylvia presentation. No. He closed the door behind him. It can't. The next 15 minutes shattered my world. My husband of 12 years, the man I'd built this company with from our garage, stood there explaining why I needed to step down. His words felt like ice water running down my spine. The board agrees. We need a different direction. More aggressive expansion, less nurturing approach. He adjusted his tie, a nervous tell I'd noticed years ago when we first started dating. You understand, right? It's just business. Just business? My voice cracked. I founded this company with you. I brought in Sylvia. And we appreciate everything you've done. He cut in smoothly. But times change. The severance package is generous. I stared at the manila envelope he placed on my desk. Through the glass walls, I could see our employees pretending not to watch. Some had been with us since the beginning, when we were just two ambitious kids with a dream and a business plan. Does Vienna know? I asked, thinking of our daughter. Let's keep work and family separate, he replied, as if they hadn't been intertwined for the past decade. You'll always be her mother. How magnanimous of you. I stood up, my legs shaking. When? Security will help you pack up. Today. The reality hit me like a physical blow. Today? You're doing this today? He checked his watch. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. HR has the paperwork ready. I looked around my office. The photos of Vienna's first day of school, the award we'd won last year for innovation, the plant Sylvia had given me when we landed her account. All of it, built on trust and partnership, now tainted by betrayal. You know what? I opened my drawer and pulled out my laptop. Keep the photos, keep everything. I grabbed my purse and the external hard drive I'd been backing up files to. Standard protocol for quarterly reviews. Heidi, don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. As I walked past our employees' desks, their eyes followed me. Maria from accounting looked close to tears. Tom from IT quickly minimized whatever he was working on. I'd hired both of them. Mrs. Young? Our security guard, Pete, approached awkwardly. I'm supposed to escort me out? It's okay, Pete. I know the way. In the parking garage, I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed. A text from Rory. Let's discuss this at home later. Home. Where we'd planned this company over late-night coffee and dreams. Where we'd celebrated our first major contract. Where our daughter was probably doing homework right now, unaware that her parents' partnership had just imploded. I started the engine, but instead of turning left toward home, I turned right. The external hard drive sat heavy in my purse, along with a decade of institutional knowledge Rory couldn't erase with a severance package. My phone buzzed again. Sylvia's name flashed on the screen. Heidi, what's going on? Rory just canceled our meeting for tomorrow. I took a deep breath. Sylvia, can we meet? There's something you need to know. Of course, come to my office now. On my way. I ended the call, a plan already forming. Rory wanted to talk about this at home later? Fine. But first, I had a meeting with our biggest client, the one whose trust I'd earned through years of personal attention, the one whose account Rory had always taken credit for, the one who had no idea she was about to become my first client at my new venture. As I pulled onto the highway, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from my sister Beatrice, whom I hadn't spoken to in months. Just heard through the grapevine. Are you okay? I hadn't been okay in the 15 minutes since Rory walked into my office. But I would be. Because while he was sitting in his board meeting, probably congratulating himself on handling things so smoothly, he had no idea what I'd discovered during those late nights reviewing the books. No idea at all about the irregularities I'd found in our international accounts, or the pattern of transfers I'd noticed but hadn't mentioned yet, or the way those transfers always seemed to end up in the same place overseas. I typed back to Beatrice. No, but I could use your help with something. The response came immediately. Name it. I smiled for the first time since Rory had walked into my office. He wanted to talk about this at home later? Oh, we'd talk. But first I had some calls to make and some truths to uncover. Sylvia's office always reminded me of a war room, with its wall-to-wall windows and commanding view of the city. She stood as I entered, her expression concerned. You look like hell, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Thanks. I managed a weak smile. It's been that kind of morning. Tell me everything. She leaned forward, elbows on her desk. And don't leave anything out. I laid it all out. The ambush, the dismissal, the generous severance package. With each detail, Sylvia's frown deepened. That snake, she muttered. After everything you've built together? Apparently my nurturing approach isn't aggressive enough anymore. Sylvia barked out a laugh. Nurturing? You're the one who negotiated that merger last year when everyone said it was impossible. You're the reason I trusted your company with my business in the first place. About that, I pulled out my laptop. I need to show you something. For the next hour, I walked her through projections, strategies, and plans I'd been developing. Things I'd meant to present tomorrow, before Rory pulled the rug out from under me. So, I concluded, I'm starting my own firm, and I want you to come with me. Sylvia stood and walked to her window, silent for a long moment. You know what this will do to him, don't you? Yes. She turned back to me, a slow smile spreading across her face. Good. When can you start? My phone buzzed. Another text from Rory. Where are you? We need to talk. I can start immediately, I told Sylvia. I already have office space lined up. A lie, but I'd make it true before the day was over. Then let's make it official. She pressed her intercom. Janet, get legal up here. We're transferring our contract. My phone buzzed again. Beatrice this time. Met with that contact I mentioned. You're going to want to see this. Excuse me, I said to Sylvia. I need to make a quick call. In the hallway, I dialed Beatrice. She answered on the first ring. Remember those transfers you mentioned? She said without preamble. I had my friend at the bank take a look. Heidi, there's a pattern. Monthly payments, same amount, going to an account in Switzerland. My hands started shaking. How long? 3 years, and that's not all. The account holder? It's registered to a woman named Anna. She's got 2 kids, Heidi, ages 2 and 4. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Send me everything. Back in Sylvia's office, lawyers were already gathering. I signed papers with steady hands, my mind racing with calculations. 3 years, 2 kids. All while Rory and I were trying for a second child, all while he told me the timing wasn't right. My phone lit up with a call from Vienna's school. Mrs. Young? Your husband tried to pick up Vienna early, but she's refusing to leave without hearing from you. Of course he had. He was trying to control the narrative, just like always. Put her on, please. Mom? Vienna's voice was small. Dad says you're sick and we need to go home, but you seemed fine this morning. Listen to me carefully, sweetheart. I'm not sick. I'm handling some important business. Stay at school, okay? I'll pick you up myself at normal time. Promise? Promise. I ended the call to find Sylvia watching me. Need help with anything else? She asked quietly. Actually, yes. Can you recommend a good divorce attorney? She smiled. I know just the person. By the time I left Sylvia's office, 3 things had happened. I'd secured my biggest client, found temporary office space in the building next door, and scheduled a meeting with one of the city's top divorce lawyers for tomorrow morning. My phone had 17 missed calls from Rory and 1 text from Beatrice. Got the address in Switzerland. When do we move? I typed back. Not yet. First we gather everything. Then we burn it all down. Walking into my temporary office, a sparse but serviceable space with a view of my old building, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. Through the window, I could see Rory's office. He was pacing, phone to his ear, probably trying to figure out where I'd gone. My own phone rang again. This time it was Richard, Rory's father. Heidi, what's happening? Rory's called me 3 times, talking about restructuring and necessary changes. Richard, I said carefully, I think you should come to town. There are some things you need to know about your son. I'll be there tomorrow. I ended the call and watched Rory's office again. He had no idea what was coming. No idea that while he was trying to push me out of my own company, I was about to expose every lie he'd ever told. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Vienna. Mom, are you really okay? Yes, sweetheart, I wrote back. And soon everything will be better than okay. I meant it too, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even, it's about getting free. The external hard drive hummed as I connected it to my laptop. Beatrice sat beside me in my temporary office, her fingers flying over her own keyboard as she traced the money trail. "Look at this," she said, turning her screen toward me. "Every transfer coincides with a business trip to Europe." I pulled up my own calendar history. Munich conference, Geneva symposium, Zurich investment meeting. My throat tightened. I remember asking to go with him to the Munich one. He said it would be boring for me. Because his other family was there. Beatrice's voice was hard. "Here's something else. Private school tuition payments for both kids, expensive ones." A knock at the door made us both jump. Richard stood there, looking older than I remembered. "The security guard downstairs said I'd find you here." He stepped inside, taking in the sparse office. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" I gestured to a chair. "You might want to sit down for this." For the next 30 minutes, we walked Richard through everything. The sudden dismissal, the discovered transfers, the Swiss account. His face grew grayer with each revelation. "2 children," he whispered. "I have 2 grandchildren I've never met." My phone buzzed. Rory again. "Vienna's asking questions. What have you told her?" I ignored it. Instead, I opened another file on my laptop. "There's more, Richard. Look at these company purchases." Beatrice leaned in. "Private jet rentals, luxury hotel bookings, all under the guise of business expenses. But used for personal trips to his other family," I finished. Richard stood abruptly, pacing the small office. "I gave him his first loan to start this company. Convinced my friends to invest." He stopped facing me. "What do you need from me?" "Just the truth," I said. "When this all comes out..." "When what comes out?" Rory's voice cut through the room like a blade. We all turned. He stood in the doorway, his carefully controlled expression slipping when he saw his father. "Dad? What are you doing here?" "Funny," Richard replied. "I was about to ask you the same thing about Switzerland." The color drained from Rory's face. His eyes darted to my laptop, the external drive, Beatrice's presence. I could almost see him calculating, formulating explanations. "Whatever Heidi's told you," he started. "Save it." I stood up. "How are Anna and the kids? Did you enjoy Munich?" He took a step forward. "You're upset about the company. I get it. But dragging my father into this, making up stories..." "Stories?" Beatrice turned her laptop around, displaying bank statements, travel records, school payments. "These look pretty real to me." "You had no right to access those." Rory's composure cracked. "Actually," I said quietly, "as co-owner of the company, I had every right. Just like I had the right to know my husband was financing another family with our profits." Richard moved between us. "How long, Rory? How long have you been lying to everyone?" "Dad, please." "How long?" 5 years, he finally admitted. "The relationship started 5 years ago. The kids came later." The timeline hit me like a physical blow. 5 years ago, I'd had a miscarriage. Rory had been working late a lot then, leaving me to process the loss alone. My phone buzzed again. Vienna's school. "Mrs. Young, your daughter's quite upset. She overheard some teachers talking about her parents' company." "I'll be right there," I said, gathering my things. "Richard, would you like to meet your granddaughter? The one you actually know about?" He nodded, still staring at his son. "I'd like that very much." "Heidi, wait." Rory stepped forward. "We can talk about this. Figure something out." "Like you figured out how to hide a second family? Or how to push me out of my own company?" I walked to the door, then turned back. "By the way, Sylvia signed with me this morning. Exclusive contract." His face contorted. "You can't..." "I can. I did. And that's just the beginning." I looked at Beatrice. "Send everything to the lawyer. All of it." She nodded, already typing. "Dad." Rory tried again. But Richard was already following me out. In the elevator, he put a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. "I had no idea." "Neither did I." I checked my phone. Another text from Beatrice. Found more accounts. This goes deeper than we thought. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Through the glass doors, I could see Vienna's school car line forming. In a few minutes, I'd have to explain to my daughter why her world was changing. But first, I typed back to Beatrice. Keep digging. He's hidden things for years. Time to bring them all to light. Richard squeezed my shoulder again. What are you going to tell her? The truth, I said, because that's the one thing her father never could. Above us, I knew Rory was probably already calling his lawyers, his bankers, trying to contain the damage. But some things can't be contained once they start spilling out. And I was just getting started. Vienna sat between Richard and me at our favorite ice cream parlor, pushing her sundae around with a spoon. The after-school crowd buzzed around us, but our booth felt like an island of quiet tension. So Dad's been lying? She finally asked. About everything? Not about loving you, I said quickly. That part's real. But he has another family? Other kids? Her voice cracked. Why wasn't I enough? Richard set down his coffee. Vienna, sweetheart, this isn't about you not being enough. This is about your father making terrible choices. My phone lit up with a text from Beatrice. You need to see this now. Can you step away? I'll be right back, I told them, heading toward the restroom. Once inside, I called Beatrice. What is it? The Swiss account was just emptied, she said. All of it. Transferred to another account 10 minutes ago. My heart raced. Can you trace it? Already did. It's going to an account in Singapore. Heidi, it's a lot of money, like multiple millions. Company money, I said, my voice hard. Our investors' money. Exactly. And there's something else. I found emails between Rory and Anna. She's threatening to expose everything unless he moves them to the States. I leaned against the wall. When? The emails are from last week. Looks like she's given him until the end of the month. A knock on the door startled me. Mom? Vienna called. Grandpa wants to know if you're okay. Be right out. I turned back to the phone. Send everything to the lawyer. And Beatrice, thank you for helping me through this. That's what sisters are for. She paused. Even if we haven't been great at being sisters lately. Back at the table, Vienna had moved to Richard's side, her head on his shoulder. My phone buzzed again. Rory, of course. The board wants an emergency meeting. What have you told them? Nothing yet, I typed back. But I will. Richard looked up from his phone. Rory's trying to call me. Should I answer? Your choice, I said. He declined the call. Vienna straightened suddenly. Can we go home? I want to get some things from my room. The thought of returning to that house made my stomach turn, but I nodded. Of course. The drive was quiet. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Rory's car wasn't there. Probably still at the office, damage control mode in full swing. Inside, Vienna ran upstairs while Richard and I stood in the kitchen. The kitchen where Rory and I had planned our future, where we'd celebrated victories, where he'd sat drinking coffee while texting his other family. I'll help her pack some things, Richard said quietly. My phone rang. Sylvia this time. Rory's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, she said without preamble. He's claiming you stole proprietary information. I laughed bitterly. Funny how he's worried about theft now. I've already told them I'm terminating our contract with them, but Heidi, he's desperate. Be careful. A crash from upstairs cut our conversation short. I ran up to find Vienna in her father's home office, a broken picture frame at her feet. It was from our last family vacation, before I knew everything had been a lie. I hate him, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I hate what he did to us. I moved to hug her, but she stepped back, pointing at Rory's desk. Look, a drawer was partially open, revealing a stack of passports. I pulled them out, one for Rory, 3 others for Anna and the children, all brand new. He was going to bring them here, Vienna said. Wasn't he? Before I could answer, we heard the front door open. Heidi? Rory's voice called up. Vienna, we need to talk. Richard appeared in the doorway. Take Vienna to my house, he whispered. I'll deal with him. I grabbed the passports in Vienna's hand. Backstairs, I mouthed. We crept down the back staircase as Rory's footsteps climbed the main one. Through the kitchen, out the back door, across the yard to where my car was parked on the side street. As we pulled away, I could hear raised voices from the house. Richard and Rory, their argument carrying through open windows. Mom? Vienna's voice was small. Are we ever coming back? I glanced in the rearview mirror at the house that had held so many memories, so many lies. No, sweetheart, we're not. My phone buzzed with a text from Beatrice. Got a room ready at my place. Gunner's making his famous pasta. Then another from Richard. He's looking for the passports. Told him I haven't seen them. Be safe. And finally, one from my lawyer. Emergency injunction filed. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring everything. I looked at the passports on the seat beside me, then at Vienna in the mirror. Ready for pasta at Aunt Beatrice's? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Mom, promise me something? Anything. Promise no more lies. I reached back and squeezed her hand. I promise. From now on, only truth. Behind us, the sunset on our old life as we drove toward something new. Something honest. Something real. Beatrice's kitchen smelled like garlic and safety. Vienna sat at the counter, actually smiling as Gunner taught her how to twirl pasta the authentic way. For the first time in days, she looked like a kid again, not a casualty of her father's choices. The board meeting starts in an hour, Beatrice said, sliding a coffee across the island to me. You ready? As I'll ever be. I opened my laptop, reviewing the documents one last time. Did you send everything to... The doorbell cut me off. Through the front window, I saw Richard standing there with a woman I didn't recognize. That's Margaret, Beatrice whispered. The board's financial auditor. I may have sent her some interesting documents last night. I opened the door. Margaret's expression was grim. Mrs. Young, she said, I've spent all night reviewing the files your sister sent. The board needs to see this immediately. That's the plan. Richard cleared his throat. Rory's already there. He's telling them you fabricated everything. Of course he is. I gathered my things. Vienna, stay with Uncle Gunner and Aunt Beatrice, okay? She nodded, mouth full of pasta. Gunner gave me a thumbs up. We've got plans to make tiramisu. She'll be fine. The drive to the office was tense. Margaret reviewed her findings while Richard sat silently in the back seat. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Rory. Don't do this. We can work something out. Think about Vienna. The last one made me laugh bitterly. Now he thinks about Vienna? The boardroom was full when we arrived. Rory stood at the head of the table, mid-presentation. He faltered when he saw Margaret. As I was saying, he continued, these accusations are completely false. Margaret stepped forward, dropping a thick folder on the table. Like these transfer records? Or these passport applications? Or perhaps these emails to Anna about moving her and the children to the States? The board members began flipping through the documents. Rory's face went from red to white. This is a private family matter, he tried. Not when you used company funds, I said, finally speaking. Not when you stole from investors to finance your second life. Alleged second life, his lawyer interjected. Richard stood. No, not alleged. He pulled out his phone, showing emails from Anna herself. I reached out to her this morning. She's quite willing to testify. Rory lunged for the phone. Dad, you had no right... Like you had no right to steal from your company? Margaret asked. To deceive shareholders? To commit what amounts to massive fraud? The board chairman cleared his throat. Rory, step outside. Now. You can't... Now. As Rory left, I pulled out the passports. Found these in his office yesterday, brand new, issued last week. The chairman examined them, then looked at Margaret. Options? Criminal charges, she said promptly. Or, Rory called from the doorway. Or immediate resignation, full cooperation with our investigation, and repayment of all diverted funds. The room fell silent. Through the glass walls, I could see employees gathering, watching the drama unfold. My phone buzzed. Beatrice. Vienna wants you to know the tiramisu is perfect. Also, Anna just emailed again. She's willing to talk. I showed the message to Margaret, who nodded. One more thing, I said to the board. Sylvia's contract. She's coming with me along with any other clients who choose to do so. No competition clause was voided the moment Rory committed fraud. You can't prove, Rory started. Actually, Margaret interrupted. She can, and did. She turned to the board. Shall we vote? The next 15 minutes were a blur of legal terms and signatures. When it was done, Rory was out, I was reinstated, and the company's future hung in a precarious balance. In the hallway, Rory grabbed my arm. You've destroyed everything. I pulled away. No, you did that. I'm just cleaning up your mess. And Anna? He hissed. The kids? We'll get what they're legally entitled to, Margaret said, appearing beside me. No more, no less. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Gunnar of Vienna laughing, face covered in tiramisu. I'm going home to our daughter, I told Rory. The one you seem to have forgotten about. Don't try to contact her unless it's through my lawyer. Richard stepped between us. I'll drive you. As we left, I heard Rory calling after us, but his words were drowned out by the sound of my heels on marble, walking away from the ruins of his lies. In the car, Richard sighed heavily. I never thought. None of us did, I said. But now we know, and knowing is better than living a lie. My phone lit up one last time. Beatrice, Vienna wants to know if you're coming home for tiramisu? Home. Not the house full of lies, but my sister's kitchen, where truth and pasta and healing waited. Yes, I typed back. I'm coming home. The meeting with Anna wasn't what I expected. She sat across from me in a private room at my lawyer's office, her hands wrapped around an untouched cup of coffee. She looked younger than I'd imagined, more scared than calculating. I didn't know about you at first, she said quietly. He told me he was divorced. Beside me, Beatrice shifted in her chair. When did you find out the truth? After Thomas was born. Anna's eyes filled with tears. By then, I was trapped. No job, 2 kids, completely dependent on his monthly transfers. My lawyer leaned forward. And the recent demands? The threats to expose everything? He promised to bring us here. Give the children his name. She laughed bitterly. I actually believed him. My phone buzzed. A text from Vienna. Dad's trying to call me again. What should I do? Block him. I typed back. Like we discussed. Anna pulled out her own phone, showing us photos. 2 children with Rory's eyes smiled back at me. Thomas, 4, and Lily, 2. My almost stepchildren, products of my husband's elaborate deception. They ask about him, Anna said. Every time he visits, they ask when he's coming back. Just like Vienna, I murmured. The door opened and Richard walked in, stopping short when he saw the photos. They have my mother's smile, he said softly. Anna looked up, recognition dawning. You're his father. Unfortunately. He sat down heavily. Those are my grandchildren. My lawyer cleared her throat. We need to discuss the settlement terms. For the next hour, we hammered out details. Anna would receive support for the children, but had to sign an NDA about the company's involvement. The kids would get trust funds, managed by an independent trustee. Everything neat, legal, contained. What about Rory? Anna asked. He's still trying to contact me. He's been served with a restraining order, my lawyer said, both for you and for Heidi and Vienna. My phone lit up again. Sylvia. 3 more clients just signed with us. Rory's trying to fight it, but the fraud allegations are scaring everyone away. Good, I typed back. Anna stood to leave, then hesitated. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know it doesn't help, but I am." "It wasn't your fault," I replied. "You were just trying to protect your children, like I'm protecting mine." After she left, Richard stared at the photos she'd left behind. "I want to meet them," he said. "My other grandchildren." "We can arrange that," my lawyer assured him. "Legally, carefully." Beatrice's phone chimed. "Gunnar says Rory's at our house. He's demanding to see Vienna." I was already moving. "Call the police." The drive to Beatrice's felt endless. When we arrived, 2 police cars were already there. Rory stood on the front lawn, shouting at the house while Gunnar blocked the door. "She's my daughter," he yelled. "You can't keep her from me." "Actually," I said, getting out of the car, "the restraining order says we can." He spun toward me. "You did this. You turned everyone against me." "No, your lies did that." I walked past him to the door. "Vienna, you okay?" She appeared in the doorway, safely behind Gunnar. "I'm fine. Dad's just making a scene. Again." The police approached Rory. "Sir, you need to leave, now." "This isn't over," he snarled. "Actually, it is." Richard stepped forward. "The board voted an hour ago. You're being investigated for criminal fraud. Leave now, or these officers will have to add violation of a restraining order to the charges." Rory's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain. Then his mask slipped back into place. "You'll regret this," he said, but he let the police escort him to his car. Inside, Vienna sat at the kitchen counter, picking at the remains of a sandwich. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked. "Yeah." She looked up. "Is it true? About the fraud charges?" I sat beside her. "Yes. Your father, he made some very bad choices. Like stealing money to pay for his other kids?" Sometimes I forgot how perceptive she was. "Yes, like that." "Good." She straightened her shoulders. "He should pay for what he did." Beatrice brought over hot chocolate for everyone. "The police will make sure he stays away." My phone buzzed one last time. "Margaret. Board wants to meet tomorrow. They're preparing to go public with everything." I showed the message to Richard, who nodded grimly. "It's time," he said. "No more hiding." Vienna sipped her hot chocolate. "Can we stay here tonight? I don't want to go back to the house." "Of course," Beatrice said. "You can stay as long as you need." Through the window, I watched Rory's car disappear down the street. Tomorrow, his carefully constructed world would completely unravel. The board would announce their findings, the fraud investigation would go public, and both his families would move forward without him. "Mom?" Vienna's voice pulled me back. "What happens now?" I hugged her close. "Now we tell the truth. All of it. And then we start over." "Together?" she asked. "Together," I promised, looking around at our makeshift family. Beatrice, Gunnar, Richard, all united by Rory's betrayal, but standing stronger for it. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into, or married into. The press conference room was packed. I stood at the podium, cameras flashing as Margaret finished reading the board's official statement. Investigation has revealed systematic fraud and misappropriation of company funds over a period of 5 years. In the front row, Sylvia gave me an encouraging nod. Behind her, Richard sat with Vienna, who insisted on being here. "I want to see it end," she'd said that morning. My phone buzzed silently. Beatrice. "Just saw Rory's lawyer entering the building. Heads up." Right on cue, the door at the back of the room opened. Rory strode in, his lawyer trailing behind him. "This is a witch hunt," he announced to the room. "These allegations are completely..." "True," I cut in, my voice steady. "And we have proof of every single one." Margaret stepped forward, distributing packets to the reporters. Bank records, travel documents, email correspondence, all verified by independent auditors. A reporter stood up. "Mr. Young, how do you respond to allegations that you used company funds to support a second family in Switzerland?" Rory's face reddened. This is a private matter. Not when it involves investor money, Margaret interrupted. Not when it involves corporate fraud. Another reporter. Mrs. Young, will you be taking over as CEO? No, I said firmly. I'm starting my own company. Several major clients, including Sylvia Holdings, have already signed with us. This is corporate sabotage, Rory shouted. This is consequences, Richard said, standing up. My son stole from his investors, his partners, and his family. As majority shareholder, I fully support the board's decision to press charges. The room erupted in questions. Through the chaos, I saw Vienna slip out into the hallway. I followed her. You okay? I asked, finding her by the water cooler. Everyone will know now, she said quietly. At school, online, everyone will know about what he did. Yes, I admitted. But they'll also know about what we did, how we stood up to him, how we chose truth over lies. The door burst open. Rory stormed out, his lawyer calling after him. Is this what you wanted? He snarled at me. To destroy everything? Don't, Vienna said, stepping between us. Just don't, Dad. You did this, not Mom. He deflated slightly. Vienna, sweetie. No. I saw the pictures of your other kids. I read the emails. You didn't just lie to Mom. You lied to all of us. Beatrice appeared, positioning herself next to Vienna. The police are here. Something about violating the restraining order? Two officers approached. Mr. Young, you need to come with us. You can't be serious. You were served with a restraining order, one officer said. You're not supposed to be within 500 feet of your wife or daughter. As they led him away, he called back. Vienna, please. Goodbye, Dad, she said softly. Inside the press room, Margaret was wrapping up. Criminal charges will be filed this afternoon. The company will cooperate fully with authorities. My phone lit up with messages. Sylvia, you're trending on Twitter in a good way. Richard. Anna called. The kids are safe. Gunnar. Dinner's ready whenever you all are done changing the world. A reporter approached us in the hallway. Vienna, would you like to comment? Before I could intervene, she straightened her shoulders. My dad made bad choices, but my mom taught me that the truth matters more than keeping secrets. That's all I want to say. The reporter smiled. Wise words. Back in the press room, Margaret was fielding final questions. I caught snippets about stock prices, investor confidence, criminal proceedings. But none of it seemed to matter as much as Vienna's hand in mine, steady and sure. Beatrice gathered our things. Ready to go? Almost. I stepped back to the podium one last time. I want to say something to anyone watching who's living with lies, who's afraid to speak up, who's protecting someone else's secrets at the cost of their own truth. The room fell silent. You're stronger than the lies. The truth hurts, yes. It breaks things. But what it builds in return, trust, integrity, real relationships, that's worth everything. Vienna squeezed my hand. Outside, reporters called questions, cameras flashed, but we walked straight to the car where Richard waited. That's going to make headlines, Beatrice said, showing me her phone. The story was already breaking across social media. Good, I replied. Let people see what happens when you choose truth over comfortable lies. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Anna. The kids are asking about their father. I told them the truth, age appropriately. Thank you for making that possible. I showed the message to Vienna. She thought for a moment, then said, maybe someday I'd like to meet them. My half-siblings. Not now, but someday. Whenever you're ready, I promised. As we drove away from the press conference, from Rory's lies, from our old life, I caught glimpses of our story on every news screen we passed. But the real story wasn't in the headlines or sound bites. It was in Vienna's resilience, in Beatrice's loyalty, in Richard's courage to face his son's crimes. It was in the truth we'd chosen, painful as it was, over the comfort of lies. And it wasn't over yet. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my new office as Sylvia walked in, carrying 2 coffee cups and a newspaper. "Have you seen this?" She dropped the paper on my desk. The headline read, "Former CEO pleads guilty to fraud charges." "I heard," I said, taking the coffee. "Richard called earlier." "How's he handling it?" "Better than expected. He's actually in Switzerland right now, meeting his other grandchildren for the first time." My phone lit up with a photo. Richard sitting in a park with Thomas and Lily, all 3 of them laughing at something off camera. I showed it to Sylvia. "Life's funny sometimes," she said. "Speaking of which, your 9 o'clock is here." I looked up to see Anna standing in the doorway, looking more confident than she had at the lawyer's office. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said as Sylvia excused herself. "Of course. How are the kids?" "Good. They love having Richard visit." She sat down, pulling out a folder. "I've been thinking about your offer." Last week, I'd proposed hiring her for our European operations. Her business degree and multilingual skills had been wasted playing the secret wife. "The position is yours if you want it," I said. No strings attached. "Why?" She met my eyes. "After everything. Because you were as much his victim as I was. And because you're qualified." She opened the folder, revealing a signed contract. "Then I accept." My phone buzzed. "Vienna. Dad's lawyer called. He wants to meet." "Do you want to?" I typed back. "Yes, but only if you're there." I showed Anna the messages. "Speaking of complicated family dynamics, how is she handling everything?" "Better than any of us expected. She's actually talking about visiting you and the kids this summer, if that's okay." Anna smiled. "Thomas keeps asking about his big sister." The door opened and Beatrice walked in, carrying a stack of files. "Quarterly projections are ready and, oh, hello, Anna." "Anna just accepted the position," I said. "Perfect timing. We need someone to handle the Munich office." My phone buzzed again. Richard sending another photo, this time of Lily on his shoulders. "Family is what you make it," Anna said, looking at the picture. "That's what I'm learning." "Speaking of family," Beatrice said, "Gunnar's making his pasta again tonight. Anna, you should come. Bring the kids." Really?" "Really," I confirmed. "Vienna's been practicing her Italian with Gunnar. She'd love to teach Thomas and Lily." After Anna left, Beatrice perched on my desk. "You okay with all this? It's a lot of blending." "I'm okay with truth," I said. "Everything else follows from that." My office door opened again. Vienna this time, home from school early for her therapy appointment. "Mom, look." She held up a paper. "I got an A on my essay about resilience." "Let me see." I read the title, "When Truth Breaks and Rebuilds Your Family." "My teacher said I should submit it to the school paper," she said proudly. "Is that okay?" "More than okay." Beatrice's phone chimed. "Rory's sentencing is scheduled for next week." Vienna sat down. "Are we going?" "Only if you want to," I said. "I do. Not for him. For us. To see it finished." My phone lit up with a message from Sylvia. "Board meeting in 5. Ready to show them what a woman's nurturing approach can really do?" I smiled, gathering my files. Our new company had already outperformed my old one's quarterly projections. "Mom," Vienna asked, "can we stop for ice cream after my appointment? Like we used to?" "Of course." I hugged her. "Same place?" "Same place, but different toppings. I think it's time to try something new." Beatrice laughed. Out of the mouths of babes. As we walked to the conference room, I passed the wall where our company's mission statement hung. Success through integrity. Growth through truth. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Richard. "Lily has your smile when she laughs. Some things run deeper than lies." I looked around at my new office, my new company, my blended and broken and beautiful family. At Vienna, strong and wise beyond her years. At Beatrice, the sister who became my partner, at the photos on my desk. Not just the old ones of Vienna, but new ones too. Thomas and Lily with Richard, Anna and the kids in the park. All of us at Gunner's last pasta night. Ready? Beatrice asked, holding the conference room door. I thought about Rory, about lies and truth, about breaking and rebuilding, about how sometimes you have to lose everything to find something better. Ready, I said. Because that's the thing about truth. It doesn't just break things. It builds them too. Stronger, better, more real than before. And we were living proof of that. Vienna tugged my hand. Mom, you're doing that thinking thing again. I smiled, just appreciating our new normal. Me too, she said. Even the complicated parts, especially the complicated parts, I thought. Because that's where the truth lives. In the messy, beautiful, unexpected ways we build family from the ashes of lies. And I wouldn't have it any other way.